Turn this over to our chair, but I wanted to thank you all for your participation and your service on the Vision Zero Community Advisory Committee. This is our inaugural meeting. We're very excited for this to start and to begin, and we're all excited from a staff perspective to be able to be working with a community advisory committee like this on such an important effort we're doing. So before I turn it over to our chair, Chair Tom Callow, I wanted to just cover a couple of things briefly, and then we'll follow the agenda and hopefully get a chance to hear from each of you as well. So I wanted to lay the groundwork. I am Keeney Knutson. I am the Street Transportation Director for the City of Phoenix. We've been working on this road safety action plan and the Vision Zero aspect of it for a number of years. Just to bring everybody up to speed as well, our council, based on a lot of serious injuries and fatalities and a rash of serious injury fatalities on our roadways, took action in March of 2021 and gave us direction as a city to be able to start working on a road safety action plan that would chart the course to make our streets safer for everybody who interacts with our roadways. And so we took that effort and we began an 18-month process to get that developed, that road safety action plan. And I know that's what we're going to be talking a little bit with that through our agenda, an overview of that plan. But before we got that plan actually approved by our city council, and we actually had another aspect of this in January of actually 2022. So just last year, our council wanted to incorporate Vision Zero into our road safety action plan. The concept of the idea and the goal there is to be able to drive fatalities on our roadways down to zero. So that was something we integrated into our road safety action plan development. And ultimately, we were able to get a unanimous approval and support for the road safety action plan in September of last year. But as part of that effort, obviously, with the Vision Zero, I wanted to make sure everybody understands the road safety action plan. It set a goal that said we are going to drive fatalities down to zero by 2050. If we get there earlier, I don't think anybody's going to be complaining if we get there earlier. We want to get there earlier. Our job is to be able to make sure the vehicle drivers, passengers, motorcyclists, pedestrians, bicyclists, anybody who interacts with our roadways, we want to make sure they're able to do that in a safe manner and they're not going to have to worry about getting seriously injured or dying as they're getting from where they're going to where they're going to. So this is a long-term plan. We're trying to get there in 27 years. If, as I mentioned, if it happens faster, great, and we will be ecstatic and celebrate that. To help us do that, that's where you all come in. This 11-member body of voting members was made up of 8 members selected by each council member, and then 3 members selected by the mayor. And so each of you represent an appointment by a council member or by the mayor on this body. We have also wonderfully, because we want to make sure we have the engagement and the input of our entire community, we also have the opportunity to be able to have 3 student non-voting members joining us to this evening as well and on the committee. So a total of 14 that are going to be working through this as we go through this process. I also want to let you know that there's also separate task forces that the city has established as well, in addition to this community advisory committee, internal task force that will be working on this and helping support the work of the committee as well. So I think I probably talked a little bit too much probably at the beginning of this, but I'm going to turn it over to our chair, Tom Callow, and he's going to take us from here, and then we'll assist in getting through this agenda. So, Chair Callow.
Thank you very much, Kenny. I don't know what I did to deserve this honor. I thought I was safely retired from the city and gone. For those of you that don't know my background, I was employed by the city for 30 years. I retired in 2009. I once held the spot that Kenny's sitting in right now. I was in the streets department for 26 of those 30 years and in the city manager's office for the last 4 of those years. And during the last 4 of those years, it was to oversee not only streets, engineering, and transit, but the construction of light rail. And for the punishment of Tom Godby, who you see on your screen, I assigned him full-time to light rail to oversee the job.
Thanks a lot, Tom.
What's that? Go ahead, Tom.
Thanks a lot. Actually, it was a lot of fun. So it backfired on you.
Okay. The first item on the agenda, once I've introduced myself, which I have, and if anybody has any questions about me, you can ask me later. Our first item on the agenda is the introduction of the Community Advisory Committee members. And Tricia, do I remember correctly that you were going to call them off, or am I going to call them off?
I'll let you call them off.
Okay, I'll call them off. I will introduce you in the order in which I have on this piece of paper. Our first member is Tom Godby, appointed by the mayor. And Tom, maybe you could just tell everybody a little bit about your background and how you came to be here.
Sure. Can you see me on the screen okay? Yeah. Well, I worked for the Street Transportation Department for several years. I was a traffic safety engineer. I worked in that area for a large portion of the time. I was with the Street Transportation Department. So what we're going to be working on for the next several months, I've actually done as an employee of the Street Transportation Department. So I understand a lot of what goes on behind the scenes and trying to get the crash numbers down. After reading through some of the information that was given to me, it's really encouraging to see that it's a really good comprehensive approach that the city is taking, because that's what's needed for something of this magnitude. So I'm looking forward to working with everybody and coming up with some really positive results.
Thank you, Tom. Next, we have Jamie Truffin, also appointed by the mayor. Jamie?
Jamie Truffin. I work with Downtown Phoenix Inc. I'm very involved in the bicycle community in the downtown area. You'll probably see me riding around on my scooter or bike around town, always with the bow tie. Prior to coming into my field, business development for Downtown Phoenix, I was an ambassador with the organization for 2 years. I worked alongside Hans Hughes as well. Big part of the bicycle community, and we just really want to make an impact for him.
Jamie. Next, we have Joe Uhas. Where are you, Joe?
Thanks, Tom. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, Joe Uhas. I'm a 27-year resident of the great city of Phoenix, appointed by the mayor. I'm a public affairs consultant. I've had a hand in several measures that have gone to the ballot in Phoenix over the years, bond measures, Parks and Recs, funding efforts, a wide variety of activities that I like to think have helped contribute to the growth and vitality and stability of our great city. I'm an avid cyclist. I do anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 miles a year. The new bike lane on 3rd Street, I feel it's a tenth of a mile from my house. I feel the city did that specifically for me. I think we have a great system of bike lanes, bike trails, to the point where I think we're spoiled about it compared to other communities, especially from back east where I'm from. But clearly, we need to address issues that I think we all are aware of and will be even more aware of in the coming weeks. I have a background in municipal government. I served on my city council in New Jersey years ago. So I understand the challenges that city staff faces, and I'm just delighted to be a part of this group.
Thank you, Joe. Council District 1, we have Michael Scott. Michael?
Yeah, thanks. I am a clinical professor at ASU in the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice. I'm also a Phoenix resident. I live along Central Avenue. So I've definitely got some opinions about traffic. And the special contribution, well, I should say that most of my research and teaching is in the area of policing. So my whole career has been in police work, either as a police officer, police executive, police chief, a law professor teaching about policing, and I currently teach at ASU about policing. The special contribution I think I can make to this group is I run a center at ASU called the Center for Problem-Oriented Policing, and it basically exists to create a body of knowledge for the police about how they can deal. About how they can.
Can you hear us, Michael? Oh, we lost everybody.
No,
We can hear you. I think we
just
lost
heard
Tom.
Michael
I
and
think we lost the message. Continue, Michael.
Okay, okay. So anyway, the work of the center is to provide guidance to the police on how they deal with the hundreds of different kinds of public safety problems they have to deal with. And it's all based on research and police practice. And about a dozen of the guidebooks that we've written for the police are related to traffic safety. And so at some point, I'd be happy to share, show you where you could access all of those publications for free online. But they represent a lot of work by a lot of people researching everything from drunk driving, pedestrian fatalities, aggressive driving, and so forth. So there's a lot of information that I think is readily available to the committee here. That could give you a very quick summary of what we know about these problems and what are known to be effective and relatively ineffective ways of reducing these specific traffic problems. One other thing, I also have, I work as part of my assignment at ASU is I serve as ASU's liaison to the Phoenix Police Department. So I keep an office in Phoenix Police Headquarters as well as at ASU, and work closely with the department on dozens and dozens of different studies. One of them that I actually led was an analysis of pedestrian fatalities in Phoenix. So with some colleagues from the School of Urban Affairs and Urban Planning over at Tempe campus, we worked extensively on studying that problem and making recommendations to the city to reduce pedestrian fatalities. And I can make that report available to the committee as well. Thanks.
Can we hear you, Chair Callow?
Hey, Jim Farley's up next.
Yeah, Jim Farley. I'm a coming up on 3-year residence in Phoenix. My previous residence was in Santa Clarita, California. It was there that I worked with the city and learned a lot, working specifically with the red light camera program in the city, but through that and working with the traffic engineer and all, I was able to learn an awful lot about traffic safety, timing of signals, setting of speed limits, you know, all of the issues like that. And I very much want to see fatalities in the city. You know, the goal of going down to 0 is great. Is that achievable? At least if we get, you know, close to that, I think we will be doing really good. So I'm looking forward to working with the group here. And one thing that I just want to make sure that we adhere to is good engineering practices with whatever actions we come up with, and utilizing the new technologies that are out there to save lives, basically. So that's it.
I'm sure we can count on Kenny and his group for good engineering practices. I know they're all professional engineers and have trained well in this. I'm the District 3 representative. I've already introduced myself. So District 4, Edward Hermes.
Oh, yeah. Hi, guys. Hi, Ed Hermes. And Hermes is fine, but I pronounce it Hermes.
Oh,
But I've
okay.
heard it every different way, which is totally fine. And I'm the District 4 representative here. Also live along nearby Central Avenue. I ride most days. I ride my bike. Well, pretty much every day I ride my bike to work here in downtown Phoenix. I take Central, and today was no different. Some of those days I'm often riding in the Shero, and some of those days I get some angry looks or some honks and some not so pleasant words coming my way for using the Shero. It frankly doesn't work very well. But more importantly, I am the president of the Osborne School District Governing Board, and where we've been doing a lot of work around safe routes to school in the Osborne District Governing Board. We've heard a lot from our constituents and parents that they want their kids to walk and ride their bikes to school, and unfortunately, it in our area in District 4, most often, it's unsafe for our families and kids to be able to walk and bike to school with too many fatalities. So I'm really excited to be on this committee to drive that number to zero, because that is the vision, and really applaud the city council and the mayor for working that and for getting a unanimous vote that zero is the vision. I also serve as a vice president of the Carnation Neighborhood Association. We're the neighborhood association near Melrose area between Central and 7th Avenue. And we turned in hundreds of letters and signatures to work on the 3rd Avenue bike lane, which is making progress. So excited to really look at design and what we can do around better design to provide safe places, protected places, separate places for bikes and pedestrians to walk and to bike. In my day job, I'm also an attorney, but none of that really matters for today. I'm here as just to contribute and to make sure that we have work towards and achieve zero deaths in our community. So thank you so much. Honored to join you guys.
Thank you very much. District 5, Rosa Menjivar. Is that correct? Did I pronounce that correct? Do I see it?
I think she is on mute.
Okay, there we go.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Rosa Menjivar, yes, you're fine. Menjivar or Menjivar is fine. So it's an honor to be here. I'm just a president of this block watch at Marybelle, and also part of PNP Phoenix Neighborhood Patrol. And I'm part of this beautiful group of mothers who cares about the community. And we have done so many things and so many changes that we created this program from zero that is called No Need to Speed. And right now is you'll see big banners in all Marybelle in every single school, over 20 schools, that No Need to Speed. And this project, and which I just came from the national conference on highway safety, thanks to this program. And we keep doing so many little things, and with such a little bit of money, just the willingness to do something and see the change. And I love this project. I hope I can help a little bit. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you very much. District 6, Jay Bieber.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jay Bieber. I am a recent transplant to Phoenix, coming up, just passing 2 years now. And when I was previously in California, I did a lot of work on traffic and transportation issues, traffic safety. I served on a statewide task force, which was called the Zero Fatalities Task Force. I also worked on task forces and subcommittees having to do with traffic signal timing, school zones. When I was a member of my neighborhood council in the Los Angeles area, I penned a report on pedestrian safety. We unfortunately had somebody who was killed by a driver while he was running with his school group, his track and field group, and that prompted a lot of interest in obviously pedestrian safety. And so I penned that. I'm happy to share that, although it's not 100% specific to California, but it certainly can cross over quite a bit. I am a member of the Institute for Transportation Engineers. I'm not a licensed engineer in Arizona, but because of my research and whatnot, you can be a member of that organization. So I'm a member for a number of years with regards to that. So so I'm looking forward to working on the issues here, especially driven by good data and good engineering practices. So I'm happy to hear there are other members on the group here that have written reports and things that are highly based on data and that sort of thing. And as far as contributing to this group, we'll have to find out whether or not the city collects enough good data or whether we need to collect more data and in order to drive some of the policies. So those are the kinds of things that I'm interested in. I thank everyone for the opportunity to serve here.
Data collection is very expensive, and it's one of the things that's often on the chopping block when you're in the budget mode because it's viewed as not painful.
Right.
At least it was during my day. I don't know, Kenny may experience something different. District 8, Pablo Zapata. Do we have?
I don't think he is on. That's one of the members I think that isn't on right now. Chair
Okay.
Calla.
Thank you very much. Student Dominic Spurgeon.
Hello, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I am Dominic Spurgeon. I was introduced to this committee from my history teacher, and I was interested in it because near my school, there's been a number of accidents, and that got me concerned. So I'm grateful that I was introduced to this committee.
Thank you, Dominic. What school do you go to?
Greenway High School.
Greenway High School. Abigail Tomich.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right,
Yep.
sweet. I'm Abigail Tomich. I'm a senior at Bioscience High School, and I ride my bike to school every day, to and from school, to the grocery store, to my job. I don't drive. That's all I do. So I experience this stuff firsthand, and I see where we could be improving, and I guess that's what this committee is for, is improving what we can. And yeah, thank you for this position.
You're welcome. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank the council. They appointed you, not I. Finally, student Michael Jones.
My name is Michael Jones. I am a formal community event organizer for the nonprofit organization of Lucha, Living United for Change in Arizona. I am also currently going to ASU. I'm a senior with one more semester to double major in justice studies and political science. I'm currently an ASU Young Dem advocate. I'm also the 2023 legislative intern for the state capital agency, the League of Cities and Towns. The reason I got involved in this committee was because I live on 36th and McDowell, and there are a lot of accidents there. I believe 2 weeks ago, there was 3 accidents in the span of 3 hours. One of them was fatality, and I have constituents telling me like they don't even drive anymore to go to the store down the street because stuff like that. But even when they're walking, they said they almost got hit by one of the accidents. So whether they're walking or whether they're driving, it's still very dangerous for them. So that's why I want to get involved and help my community kind of resolve that out of control kind of like crashing. So I'm thankful to be here, and I look forward to getting to know everybody.
Thank you very much. Kenny, did you want to introduce your staff?
Tom, did we skip Dan?
I didn't see him on the list.
Oh, he's D7, so thought I saw him.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dan Penton. You're right, I did skip. Dan, where are you?
I don't know, his name is up there. I saw him for a moment ago.
Andy, you
Yeah,
have
Dan,
your.
are you able to speak, Commissioner Penton? Unmute.
I'm in the meeting. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can, yeah. Would you care to introduce yourself, Dan?
Okay. All right. Hi, I'm Dan Penn. I'm actually representing District 7 out here in Levine. I'm honored to be here with all of you. Most of my background, I've been in Phoenix now for going on 20 years. Transplant from the Bay Area, where most of my background was in retail loss prevention, internal investigations with Macy's department stores, and for some of the larger grocery outfits like Safeway and warehouse companies, really trying to combat retail organized crime. So been out here, been in Levine for almost 8 years, and a lot of my time out here has been focused on community advocacy. I I'm a president of my community's Block Watch, and I was a president of the Levine Community Council, which is an organization that's been around for about 70 years. And I'm currently a board member on the Levine Citizens for Responsible Development, where we work with, much like the village planning committees, We're a grassroots organization that meets, with the developers prior to them, prior to pre-application, and to get all the fine details worked out, so their processes, so they go through the process more smoothly. So I work collaboratively to, come up with, sustainable transportation options, access to public trails, and just making the plans a better fit for the community. More recently, I co-founded a bicycle advocacy group in Laveen called Bike Laveen with my partner, and been doing that for about over 6 months now. But we've been pretty engaged with the city, active at a lot of the meetings. But our primary goal is promoting bicycling, not just in Laveen, but citywide. And where I live in my block watch and all this, I'm in a unique spot. I'm surrounded on three sides of our property with schools. We've got Legacy School. We've got Heritage Charter School, Cesar Chavez High School, and Vista del Sur Elementary, all on three sides of our property. The parking and traffic the traffic congestion, 2 times a day, 5 days a week, is unbearable. And what I see on a daily basis, blows my mind. So my biggest concerns are, making bicycling, making, our streets for pedestrians, for everybody, making everything so it's a lot safer for everybody. But, advocating for those protected bike lanes, even grade level bike lanes, and grade separated bike lanes. Sorry about that. And then finding ways that we can, get the public more engaged and have them educated and saying, this is, bicycling is a viable form of transportation, reduces our emissions, it's better for our health, and it creates a better walkable city. But more importantly, to do that, I want to explore enforcement options, ways that, we can, start holding people accountable for their actions, because there's a lot of ways, people like to run red lights without a second thought. They'll park in bike lanes and which causes people to have to go out into the street. That's, a huge issue out here. So finding ways to get the public involved through whether it's through community reporting or any number of different programs. I'd like to see that be a focus of this committee. And then to another member's point about data collection, I support that 100%. In fact, I'd like to see a Vision Zero dashboard up on the city's website, so the public can see our progress. They can see what projects have been implemented, see where their capital improvement projects are, and they can actually see, they can visualize what we're actually doing, not just hear it from us or read it on a piece of paper, but they can look at the dashboard, see where these projects are, see where these improvements are being made or planned to be made, and give them an opportunity to have that input well ahead of time, so we make sure that project is a good fit and everything, but it's as inclusive and equitable as possible. No, but thank you very much. I'm excited to be here, and I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we've introduced all of the members. I think we'll introduce staff as they're called upon to do something, Kenny, and let's move on to item number 4, overview of the open meeting law. And it says David Welch from the city clerk will give a brief presentation. Is that correct?
Yes, I will share my screen now. Okay. The Arizona Open Meeting Law is mandated by ARS Title 38-431, is guided by the Attorney General through investigations, legal opinions, and the Arizona Agency Handbook. Compliance is required by Rule 9 of the Rules for Council Proceedings in the City Code. It promotes open deliberations and proceedings, ensures that decisions are made in public, promotes access to governmental processes, and the basic principle is that the business of the public should be conducted in public. The Arizona Open Meeting Law applies to all public bodies, including the City Council and Council subcommittees, city boards, commissions, and committees, advisory committees, and their subcommittees. Arizona open meeting law does not apply to meetings of a single agency or department. There are exceptions that include the state legislature. The Arizona open meeting law applies to all meetings when there is a gathering in person or through technological devices or a quorum of members of a public body at which they discuss, propose, deliberate, and or take legal action. A quorum is a majority of appointed members, majority of number of seats on a board, or a quorum could be defined by specific statutory provisions such as by the ordinance, charter, or bylaws governing the body. A meeting can take place through electronic communications, so it is important to be aware of this as a board member to avoid a violation. This can happen when there is an exchange of an electronic communication among a quorum. If the exchange involves discussion, deliberation, or taking action by the body concerning a matter likely to come before the body, this can also include an exchange between two members if a quorum is copied, even if no members respond. A one-way electronic communication can occur if it is sent by one member of the quorum of the public body, and when the communication proposes legal action. The Arizona open meeting law applies to all meetings when there is a gathering in person or through technological devices of a quorum of members of the public body at which they discuss, propose, or take legal action. Wait a minute, hold on. I think I might have got mixed up here.
What our slide says.
Yeah, I think we might have got stuck here. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. A meeting can take place through electronic communication, so it's important to be aware to avoid a violation. Okay. One-way electronic communication. Okay, this is the one. So what is legal action? Legal action includes discussions, deliberations, and consultations among a majority of members of the public body on matters that may require final action or decision. This applies to when business is discussed, not just on action items. In order to be in compliance with the Arizona open meeting law, a public body must do the following: provide notice of the meeting, provide an agenda, meet in public, permit the public to attend, with the exception of authorized executive sessions, take all action in public, or create or prepare minutes or a recording of the meeting. Meeting notices must be posted at least 24 hours in advance of the meeting time. The meeting time on the official posting board located on 3rd Avenue on the west side of the City Hall. To ensure that you meet the deadline, the city clerk asks that you send the notice 48 hours in advance of the meeting. If a meeting is not posted, the meeting cannot be held. Absolutely no part of the meeting can be held. If a meeting is posted late, the meeting must start late. For example, if the notice is posted at 4:15 p.m., the meeting cannot start until 4:15 p.m. The provided notice shall include the name of the body, date, time, and place of the meeting. It shall include specific agenda items to be discussed, considered, or decided, or where to get a copy of the agenda. It shall include a reasonable description to inform the public of what will be discussed. For example, items of the agenda should be specific to items that will be discussed, considered, or decided. For discussion at the meeting, I'll cover quickly what is prohibited and what is allowed. What is allowed is discussion of the merits of an item listed on the agenda and action on an item listed for action on the posted agenda. Prohibited items include discussion or action on matters not listed on the agenda, discussion or action without a quorum present, restating that we cannot conduct meetings without a quorum. Please note that a quorum can be lost during a meeting. For example, if a member leaves the room to take a phone call, a quorum could be lost, or if a member leaves the meeting and does not return, a quorum could be lost. So if it's not on the agenda, you cannot discuss it. If a quorum is not present, you cannot meet. The Arizona open meeting law does not give the public the right to speak on agenda items, but the public may expect it. For non-agendized items, the call to public permits the public to comment on non-agenda items. OML does not require a public comment period, but public comment is provided at all Phoenix City Council meetings, and the public may expect it at all other city meetings. The public comments the meeting body cannot discuss the matter or respond, but the meeting body can have a speaker fill out a comment card for the record, impose reasonable time restrictions, ask staff to follow up with the speaker or place the topic on a future agenda, or respond to personal attacks. Outside the meeting, Arizona open meeting law allows communication with staff for clarification or information about an item on the agenda. Other members should not be included in the communication. Other prohibited items include requesting staff to poll other members for opinion on issues, communication among members of the body on current or potential action items, separate or serial discussions with a majority of the members of the body on a potential action item, and email chains and social media dialogue. For committee members who wish to relay or transmit information, it is best to take the following steps. The member should send the information to the body and to the board liaison. The information must not be a member's position on a matter or proposal for action. The liaison will distribute the information to other board members as appropriate. When there is a conflict of interest, it must be disclosed to the board liaison, and a form must be submitted with the declaration. The conflict must be declared at the meeting. A member with a conflict may not discuss or vote on the item. A member with a conflict is not counted towards quorum on the item. The reason for timelines of record of meetings is because actions are often effective immediately, and the public may be limited about how much time they have to respond. So this provides the public with access to the official action as soon as possible. Your board liaison should typically take care of these items. The record of meetings must provide a recording or written minutes of a public meeting which contain a date, time, place, members present and absent, a general description of matters considered, names of persons making statements, description of legal actions taken, motions, and the vote that follows. Open meeting law provides that the record of the public meetings be available to the public. Minutes or recordings must be available to the public within 3 working days after the meeting. A statement describing legal actions or recording must be posted to the web within 3 working days after the meeting, or 10 days for an advisory or subcommittee. Approved minutes must be posted to the web within 2 working days after approval. It's important to note that what happens if there's a violation of the Arizona open meeting law. Individuals and members who knowingly violate, any persons who aid, attempts to agree to aid, may be subject to the following. The actions taken at the meeting could be rescinded, a civil penalty of up to $2,500. The person found in violation could be liable to pay attorney fees and removal from office. It should be highlighted that the monetary penalties cannot be paid by the city and will be paid by the individual found in violation of the Arizona open meeting law. If a committee member attends a meeting outside of their committee, it should be very clear if the committee member is speaking as an official versus individual capacity. They should be able to clearly identify if they are sharing on behalf of official duties. They should be able to clearly identify if they are sharing personal opinions or beliefs. I think to remember when acting in individual capacity includes, usually it is the best practice not to identify as a board member. You should not be speaking on behalf of the board, and it's vital to note when your position is in conflict with board discussion. If you would like more information on the Arizona open meeting law, I've listed 3 excellent resources. They can be provided to your liaison if requested. And if there's no other questions, I will stop sharing and we'll log off if there are no other questions.
David, I have a question for you. We have 11 voting members and 3 non-voting members. So is a quorum for our committee 6?
Yes, this is the majority vote, yes.
All righty. That was my question.
Okay.
Anyone else have a question for David? I think the key thing there was if you get in trouble, you're writing the check, not the city.
Yes, that's usually the biggest takeaway.
Okay. I do have a question because I represent this big blog watch. It's a lot of members who would like to know how's the meeting going or what can I say to them. Am I allowed to talk about what we were talking about, the topic, or I'm not allowed to?
I think it would be best to just not do that. It would be like in this particular case, I mean, it'll be public record at some point. I mean, it'd probably be best to wait until that all comes out.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, with that, I will go to item number 5, overview of the Road Safety Action Plan, and I believe I'm going to turn it over to Brianna here. Is that correct?
Thank you, Tom. Reed is going to be sharing the presentation shortly.
What are we doing here, Brianna?
Reed, do you have the presentation?
Reed, are you on mute?
Yeah, I'm going to unmute. I'm going to try to get it up and running. So let me see what happens here.
So be a quick item if we can't get to the presentation. While he's doing that, I will tell you a quick story. We were making a presentation at a public meeting on Glendale Avenue and the SR 51 on whether to have an overpass or an underpass. And the plan had called for an overpass, but the neighborhood wanted an underpass. So we were having a public meeting and there were approximately, in my view, 600 people there that all wanted an underpass. And we got up to give the presentation, and this was back in the day of slides. And the gentleman turned on the slide projector and blew the light bulb. And we had no spare light bulb. So we had a room packed with people who were there for this meeting and no method of showing the presentation. But a bicyclist came to our rescue, jumped on his bicycle, ran home, got his own spare bulb out of his house and brought it back, and we were able to show the presentation. And if you've driven the 51, you know we went with an underpass.
Showing this.
Reed is starting to share content.
So your presentation. It's gone.
It was there for a moment.
I gotta go.
My apologies, Chair Callow. I think our systems have had a lot of updates today, and so it could be messing up with some of the systems. So we've let us have had to reboot today for some security patches. So I'm not sure if Reed got caught up in that as well, but I think we're trying to work through this to get the presentation up here.
See Reed up on our screen anymore. I guess that's because he's trying to do the content share.
So do you have it that you could pull it up for us?
Reed, is it still in our shared folder?
I think Reed fell off the meeting. He might be logging
let
back
me
in.
check. Give me a second.
We could, if you wanted to. I would suggest maybe if do we want to go to the next item on the agenda and then come back to the project manager's report?
That'd be fine. If the next item is doable.
I can share it from my computer too, if that helps in any way.
So I think Reed's presentation on the project manager's report is directly behind the first presentation.
Very good.
I have the report here, Brianna. I can share it. If you want to go ahead and get started, we can do that.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
To the rescue. Hey, we have it up. Now do we have Reed?
But we can go ahead and get started because I am in the beginning. So thank you guys all for your patience. Good evening. Welcome to our first Vision Zero Community Advisory meeting. My name is Brianna Velez, and I'm the Assistant Street Transportation Director. I'm joined here this evening with Reed Henry, who is our roadway safety engineer and responsible for the day-to-day activities associated with the Road Safety Action Plan.
Just before you move on, Brianna, Tricia, could you mute?
Yes, my app is.
You're muted now. Okay, next slide, Tricia, please. Okay, oh, we lost it. There we go. In September 2022, Phoenix City Council unanimously approved a comprehensive Vision Zero roadway safety action plan and the allocation of $10 million in annual funding for its implementation. The Vision Zero Community Advisory Committee will provide feedback and recommendations about how the plan is implemented. Today, we will be providing you an overview of the action plan that includes information on the issue, share the data and trends, discuss the 5 E's of traffic safety, share what we heard from the community during the engagement process, and discuss the outline of the action plan as well as the path forward to implementation. Next slide. I wanted to spend a moment reflecting on the safety trends and why the implementation of this plan is so important. On average in the city of Phoenix, we have over 30,000 crashes every year, which amounts to 83 crashes every day. We know crashes vary in their severity, and those crashes result sadly in 1 death on our roadway every other day. If you want to put this into perspective for those who travel, the number of deaths on our roads every year could fill a commercial airliner, and this is absolutely not acceptable. Next slide. So why is this plan needed? Data from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration consistently ranks Phoenix in the top 3 cities in the nation for overall traffic fatalities. While the city of Phoenix has been investing and prioritizing safety in the transportation network, it is recognized that this action plan is needed to change the direction of road safety in our community. These statistics from the National Highway Safety Administration display data for total average fatalities from 2017 to 2019. Over those 3 years, you can see that Phoenix has had the 3rd highest number of roadway fatalities nationwide, behind only Los Angeles and Houston. Next slide. So taking the data analysis a little further, this data shows our fatality crashes involving bicyclists, pedestrians, and vehicles from 2018 through 2023. I want to note that the 2022 data is still pending finalization, and the 2023 is projected based on the first 3 months of 2023. Over the last few years, you will see that fatal vehicular crashes have decreased. However, pedestrian and bicycle fatal crashes have increased or remained at the current levels. Next slide. So in reviewing the crash data for 2015 through 2019, you will see that 96% or majority of our total crashes are vehicular related crashes. However, when you look specifically at the fatal and serious injury crashes, 26% involve pedestrians and 6% involve bicyclists. If we drill down even further to specifically the fatal crashes, 50% of all fatal crashes involve our most vulnerable road users, pedestrians and bicyclists. Next slide. So knowing these safety trends, what is Phoenix's vision? Well, through workshops and collaboration with the city, the project team established 6 goals that guided the development of the Roadway Safety Action Plan. The overall vision is to reduce the number of fatal and serious injury crashes to 0 by 2050, which will take a broad effort between departments, process improvements, and implementing strategies to support safety of all road users, whether you are walking, biking, rolling, driving, or using transit. So when we look at the goals, the first one is to use data to drive decisions. A citywide crash review was conducted to understand how and when crashes occur and who are involved. This is the first step in determining how to prevent similar crashes in the future. Gathering data establishes a citywide baseline from which to improve. It allows the city to target high crash locations, and it's helped the team develop emphasis areas for which strategies and countermeasures were later developed. We are continuing to enhance the crash data tools to further support safety reviews and prioritization of improvement. Then we have to embrace the 5 E's of transportation safety, which include engineering, education, enforcement, evaluation, and equity. The third is to engage the public. Public engagement was ongoing throughout the Roadway Safety Action Plan process and included online and virtual engagement opportunities as well as in-person events. The public engagement was aimed to inform and educate Phoenicians about traffic safety problems and the action plan. It also was to consult and involve and understand the community's perspective about safety issues. The fourth is to develop and implement strategies and countermeasures. That's really the heart of the Roadway Safety Action Plan. It is the 41 proposed strategies for reducing killed and serious injury crashes on Phoenix roads. These actionable strategies are supported by data, integrate the 5 E's, and take into consideration the priorities of the public. These strategies are organized under 15 objectives within 5 focus areas. The fifth is to establish performance measures for evaluation. To measure success of our proposed strategies, performance metrics must be established to monitor and track the reduction of crashes and injuries, increase the education and enforcement of programs, as well as the installation of new safety infrastructure. And the sixth one is to establish a culture of safety. With the Road Safety Action Plan, the goal is to create a lasting change and fundamentally change the way the city approaches road safety through process change, coordination, and providing staff the tools to integrate safety in day-to-day operations. Next slide. So the question is, how do we reverse these trends and how do we get to 0 deaths on our roadways? The Safe Systems approach aims to eliminate fatal and serious injuries for all roadway users. It takes a holistic view of the roadway system, but also takes into consideration that humans make mistakes. The Safe Systems approach incorporates the following 6 principles. Death and serious injury is unacceptable, that humans make mistakes, and that humans are vulnerable, that responsibility is shared, that safety is proactive, and that redundancy is crucial. The 5 objectives of the Safe Systems approach is safe road users, safe vehicles, safe speeds, safe roads, as well as post-crash care. And with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Reed Henry, who's going to take you through the remainder of the presentation.
All right, can you hear me? Yeah, I see some shaking other heads. Great. Doing it a little different than I practiced. I got a little different format now. Computer went a little crazy, so hopefully I could see my notes on my screen. So basically, Brianna gave a good overview of the introduction of the Road Safety Action Plan Vision 0. So what I'm going to do with my time is go through the remaining chapters of the Road Safety Action Plan. So the next chapter is the facts. Here we reviewed 5 years of motor vehicle crash data to determine what modes of travel were involved. Did they involve pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, or vehicle drivers? How severe were the crashes? Was someone killed or seriously injured? So throughout the remainder of my presentation, I'll be talking about KSI. So basically KSI is where a person was either killed or seriously injured in a crash. What types of collisions occurred? Was it a rear end crash, a left turn crash, a single vehicle crash? When were the crashes occurring? During the weekday, weekends, or during the day or night? Where were the crashes occurring? Were they at intersections or along segments of roadway? What violations were reported? Was it failure to yield right away, disregard signal, etc.? So as you can see here, pedestrians plus cyclists accounted for 50% of the fatal crashes. 21% of the KSI crashes were speed related. 15% of the fatal crashes involved motorcyclists. 43% of the KSI crashes occurred at signalized intersections, with 57 of the crashes occurring along segments. Furthermore, Appendix A of the Road Safety Action Plan provides more detail in the motor vehicle crash analysis that we did. So I'm assuming I'll need someone to advance the slide. Okay, all right. So based on the crash analysis, we identified initial emphasis areas which expanded our focus to include young drivers between the ages of 15 and 24, which represented 24% of all crashes. Nighttime crashes were overrepresented for all crashes with respect to traffic volume, and specifically KSI crash or pedestrian crashes are overrepresented at night. And we added behavior-related issues where the user's behavior influenced the occurrence and/or severity of the crash. Next slide. To focus on where the KSI crashes were occurring, we developed the high injury network. The high injury network, again, looked at 5 years motor vehicle crash data, specifically looking for locations where high concentrations of crashes resulted in a fatality or serious injury. During the 5-year period evaluated, there were 5,437 KSI crashes identified. And the figure here shows where those concentrations occurred. And the primary use of the high injury network is to identify locations or corridors where resources should be prioritized. Next slide. The 5 E's is the third chapter in the Road Safety Action Plan. The 5 E's is a standard approach to improving transportation safety by looking at roadway networks through 5 equally important lenses. The evaluation lens identifies safety issues and is used to determine if the strategies implemented have been effective. The engineering lens is used to determine if there are infrastructure improvements that may be needed. The enforcement and education lenses are used to modify user behavior to be consistent with the infrastructure provided. And the equity lens is then used to verify if we are applying our resources equitably to meet the needs of our users. So briefly, I'll go through on the next 5 slides some highlights of each of these lenses. Next slide. The evaluation lens focuses on network screening and benchmarking efforts to measure the effectiveness of strategies. Goals include 1, developing an automated crash analysis and reporting tool, 2, updating the high injury network, and 3, developing a warranting tools to expedite project selection. Next slide, please. The engineering lens identifies improvement projects to improve traffic safety through planning, design, maintenance, operations. Goals include enhancing focus on the safety focus areas identified, developing infrastructure projects related to the focus areas in targeted locations, and 3, further integrating safety analysis into the project and program development process. Next slide, please. The enforcement lens focuses on policing, preventing, and mitigating behaviors affecting road safety. Goals included generating crash analysis reports and summaries for targeted enforcement efforts, 2, develop and enhance enforcement strategies to address poor user behavior, and 3, the Road Safety Action Plan will support efforts to enforce safety ordinances. Next slide, please. The education lens consists of communication campaigns and initiatives that teach and provide safe behavior for all road users. Goals include development of education strategies to target emphasis areas and locations, identify new methods of communicating existing campaigns, and 3, expanding collaboration with state, regional, and other local partners on educational opportunities. Next slide. Break for a drink of water. The equity lens is used to ensure work efforts are free from bias, identifies, understands, and eliminates barriers that exist for people using the network. Goals included evaluating characteristics of residents to understand if the transportation network is safe and accessible where they live, and 2, integrates equitable community engagement for all city residents. Next slide, please. So the next chapter is engaging Phoenicians in engaging Phoenicians. Community engagement was ongoing throughout the development of the Vision Zero Road Safety Action Plan. Via the road safety website, tweets, webinars, in-person events, council meetings, and library events, to name a few. Next slide. Phase one of the community engagement was designed to inform, educate, and survey Phoenicians about the development of the Road Safety Action Plan and existing traffic safety problems based on the crash data. Phase one also solicited community feedback regarding the initial emphasis areas, Phoenicians' relative transportation needs, and identified specific locations of safety. Based on the initial survey, 60% of the respondents think Phoenix streets are unsafe. And the number one priority for Phoenicians was that they wanted the plan to focus on preventing fatal crashes. Over 4,000 people visited the survey, and over 2,600 people completed the initial survey. On the right, you can see that driver behavior and missing/inadequate infrastructure were by far the greatest concerns conveyed in the survey. Now, considering the information we received from phase one, phase two of the public engagement presented the focus areas along with potential safety strategies for public comment. 72% of the phase two respondents agreed or strongly agreed with the proposed strategies. Next slide, please. Excuse me. The fifth chapter was taking action. So after considering the information obtained from our public engagement activities, we were able to solidify one, the focus areas that were supported by the committee, and two, the strategies for those focus areas. The first focus area developed was general strategies, which is internal to the City of Phoenix and has three objectives: to promote a strong culture of transportation safety within the city departments, to enhance safety data collection and evaluations, and establish timelines and budgets for the implementations. The behavior-related focus area also has three objectives. One, reduce the number of KSI crashes involving pedestrians and bicyclists. Two, reduce the number of crashes involving speeding, red light running, distracted driving, and aggressive driving. And three, reduce KSI crashes related to impaired driving. The pedestrian bicyclist focus area had three objectives as well: to reduce the number of KSI crashes involving pedestrians and bicyclists by one, expanding the safe routes to school efforts, two, geometric reconfigurations of the roadway, and three, reducing existing gaps in pedestrian infrastructure. The intersection focus area also had three objectives that included reducing the number of KSI crashes at signalized and unsignalized intersections through geometric reconfiguration and systemic countermeasures. And three, changes the signal timing and phasing is one of the objectives as well. The segments focus area had three objectives: to reduce the number of KSI crashes by one, improving access management; two, improving visibility, illumination, and driver expectancy; and three, reduce the number of KSI crashes with systemic lighting improvements citywide. Next, let me go. Can we go back? Oh, stay on the slide, please. So basically, when we developed this, we developed our focus areas, then we developed our objectives, and then strategies. So I'm going to go through, and this is kind of how it's laid out for each of the focus areas. Next slide. So I'm picking just the intersection focus area. So basically, we have the objectives. We had three objectives, and then we had this, several strategies for each one of the objectives. So here the schematic shows how we move from a focus area through our objectives to the strategies we wanted to implement. Now the process is similar for each focus area, where the focuses are cascading down through the objectives, which is what we want to accomplish, and then the strategy is how we plan to meet those objectives. So the next couple slides, I'm going to take a deep dive on the intersection focus area. Next slide, please. So here we have the focus area of intersections, and we identified three objectives. The first two is basically to reduce the number of KSIs at signalized intersections, and the third is to reduce the number of KSI crashes at signalized intersections with signal and phasing and timing improvements. So the next slide, please. So now we're at the strategy stage. We have five strategies that have identified for the objective number 4C. Each strategy has a code and a description. Each strategy identifies which of the 5 E's it pertains to and how the strategy will be applied. Will it be applied on the HIN, systemically, at specific location, or programmatically. And the last column identifies which department will lead these strategies. So for example, strategy IT03A, evaluate and modify left turn phasing at signalized intersections on the HIN, is supported by the evaluation, engineering, and equity lenses, would be applied on the HIN and programmatically, and would be led by the Street Transportation Department. So that's basically how we've developed our focus areas, our objectives, and our strategies. Next slide. Over 100 total strategies were initially evaluated, and through workshops and the community input, we pared down the number of strategies to 41 in the final plan. To be selected as a strategy, the strategy needs to be implementable, have a high likelihood to reduce KSI crashes, be connected to one of the 5 E's, and have gained public support via our public engagement. The next slide, please. A path forward is the final chapter in the RSAP. Strategies were prioritized to determine which types of projects would have the greatest impact versus costs associated to implement them. Foundational changes to enhance the structural culture within the City of Phoenix are needed, both internally and externally, and are underway. Systemic implementation of strategies will be based on the successful implementation of effective strategies. Tracking and reporting of the crash data and the impact associated with the safety strategies implemented will be documented. And last but not least, the Vision Zero Task Force will help lead the foundational changes necessary to improve our transportation safety culture. Next slide. So if you have any questions regarding the RSAP chapters we discuss, as in why we developed RSAP, the crash facts used to develop the focus areas and strategies, the 5E approach lenses, our community involvement activities, or a path forward, I think we have some time to discuss.
I have a quick question. Can you hear me? Are a lot of these, or are most of these, since they've already gotten, public support through the survey process and all that, which if any of these would still require public meetings or public input for implementation? I mean, so can some of these move forward, because they've already gotten the support to the surveys, or is there another process that requires, additional public input?
Who's going to take that?
I can go ahead and jump in. So the roadway safety action plan was approved by council that identifies all of the strategies within there. And so all of those technically have been approved. Depending on some of those strategies, they may require us to come back to bring information to share with our council, depending on what those are. So we would have to go through the strategies that identify those that would require additional discussion possibly, and then those that we're actively working on. For example, rebuilding a traffic signal is not something we would have to come back to council to discuss. We are actively working on that. Constructing new hawk signals is not something that we would have to bring back. So there are strategies within the plan that we are absolutely working on now and will continue to work on and won't require further discussion.
Okay, thank you. So one more. So with hawk signals and traffic signals and all that wouldn't require. So let's say there was a reconfiguration of the streets or addition of bike lanes or reduction of lanes. That would obviously require further public input, correct?
Yes, that would require us to hold a separate public meeting. That is a typical process associated with our capital improvement projects. And so yes, 100%, we would need to bring that forward through the design and construction process and have public engagement.
Thank you.
I believe you had your hand up.
Oh, thank you so much, Chair. Ed Hermes from District 4. I wanted to ask specifically about pedestrian and bicyclist focus area, page 39 of the report, and really appreciate you going over it. This kind of dovetails with what Dan was saying about the public meetings, because I've been involved in a lot of these public meetings. we've been asking for road diets and bike lanes in and around our school for many years, our schools in our school district. And it is very difficult, even though, on the plan it says we're supposed to implement 20 schools per year focused on schools and our arterial collectors and a high equity need. It's been very difficult, frankly, the way that public process has gone, because it's very slow and it's only planned out at usually about half mile at a time. We show up, us parents. I guess I should have mentioned that in my introduction. My most important role as a dad of 2 little girls who are 5 and 7 and who would love to walk and bike to school, but can't right now because it's unsafe. And that's leaving, gaps in our infrastructure. That's on the same page on page 39 about the bike safety plan. So what can we do? I guess my question is, what can we do to be more comprehensive and plan out in a more comprehensive manner to bring the infrastructure we need? Planning it at a half mile or 7/10 of a mile, which is what we're doing right now on Osborne Road next to one of our schools. The problem with that is it leaves huge gaps in our infrastructure, and our commuters, in whatever manner that you commute, are commuting more than 0.7 miles at a time. So what can we do to be more comprehensive and provide that infrastructure that we need along, especially in and around our schools? First part of my question. And second part is about safe routes to school. We worked with the safe routes to school folks for a number of years. And right now, at least as I understand it, that we don't have a safe routes to school coordinator anymore at the City of Phoenix. And I thought that was a valuable position. Where are we at with that and getting a kind of rebuilding that safe routes to school program to empower our schools and our parents to advocate for safe routes to school?
So in terms of your first question related to the bike lane project. So obviously right now our team is heavily focused on the easiest way to go out and implement these bikeway projects, and that is associated with our pavement maintenance program, right? And they are working really hard and diligent to identify those projects where we actually have the pavement width to add in the bike lanes that does not remove on-street parking and does not remove travel lanes, so that we can go in and we're just providing notification to people. And as soon as the street is paved, we can come in and we are adding bike lanes to those. So right now that is our fastest way to get in and where our team is really focused on their efforts. Then we have the other projects that we're doing that are associated with pavement maintenance that do trigger the need for public engagement, which is where we are removing travel lanes and or removing parking. So those do take a little bit longer, but right now we are in the process of bringing forward our new active transportation plan to council next month. And as part of that plan, our active transportation team is going to work with 2 villages per year to sit down very closely with the community and identify like a completed network where we can do quick and fast projects and get them in working directly with the community. And I know we'd probably like to do more village planning committees than 2 per year, we are excited about this opportunity to really closely engage the community to identify their active transportation needs in their community. So I think that's something that's going to be coming forward, and I think will be really great for all of Phoenix. In regards to the safe routes to school, yes, we did have our long-term safe routes to school employee who retired. We are currently working on getting that position filled. Right now, we've not seen a tremendous amount of success when we are advertising some of our positions just because of the market, but we are working to put that position out, put that together. In the meantime, the supervisor of that position is still available. Our team is still available. And so we have a lot of knowledgeable staff members on our team. And so if there is any interest by any school, we are ready to engage and help while we are in this interim period. So.
And if I may, Chair Callow, answering Commissioner Ermis's question there too, that's the kind of the beauty of this committee. As we go through this process now, this is our first working to actually implement the road safety action plan. And so if that is a comment that we're hearing from the committee that you want to see us do more in a more coordinated fashion and network fashion, that's definitely something we'll take back to our working committee and look for those opportunities, because how we've done things in the past when it comes to this is going to be different when we've got the RSAP driving us forward now. So I imagine how we tackle things, it's going to be influenced and by the work of this committee and the input of this committee. So we're already writing that down, what you just said, and so we'll be taking that back to the group as well to figure out what we can do moving forward with our implementation.
Thank you so much. And as was mentioned, we got to use data to drive the decisions. The data is saying we've got a huge problem here, and it's a huge and deadly problem here. So we can't keep doing things the way we've been doing them. We've got to be bold, and the city council is expecting that. I think the mayor's expecting that to drive this to zero deaths. So appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I'm not quite sure how I'm supposed to call on people who have their hand raised. Is there a technique for that, or do you want to do it, Tricia?
Yeah, I can do it. Abigail's had her hand up for a while. Abigail?
Okay.
Thank you. There's some comments in the chat that are interesting, like why the data in the RSAP is from 2015 to 2019 and not more recent data. Is it not like a living document that has emerging trends in data? Is it just from those 4 years?
Do you want to take that, Reed, or maybe is that Reed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to take that?
Basically, when we started our RSAP about 2 years ago, that was the data that was currently available when we did the analysis. But I think it is time to go through and update the HIN and the crash data to a more recent. Basically, the way we had been operating, we'd send the crash reports to ADOT. ADOT would then scrub them, send them back to us, but we would get that on like a yearly basis. So under that process, crashes could have been 6 months to 18 months old by the time we received the data. Now we've set up a system to where we're pulling the data monthly, but it's not always doesn't have all the data. It only has part of the data. So we were working on information that was based on a full, complete year, and that took some time to get that data. But we do plan to update the data.
Thank you. And I did have a comment about the RSAP. In my review, there aren't really any teeth in this document. And in the comments, it seems like people think that's a similar issue. And I think we should be meeting monthly because this provides more engagement and an opportunity with staff to understand the RSAP and for staff to develop strong relations with the committee, which will ultimately allow us to strengthen road safety and expedite the needs of micromobility. Thank you.
Next.
Next is Jay.
Jay.
Yes, thank you. So just two things I wanted to sort of ask and point out at the same time on the presentation. I don't have the slides up, but I know there was a slide there that had shown some statistics with regards to a percentage of fatalities or KSIs, I forget which it was, which had to do that were speed related. I'm not quite sure exactly what speed related means within the context of the city of Phoenix and how that's designated, because that could be very different than, exceeding the speed limit is one thing, but it could also be simply that it becomes a catch-all for, hey, we don't really know what caused the collision, but must have been speed because we can't figure out anything else, and it's kind of a default thing. But what I really wanted to point out was further down on that slide, there was a percentage, or there was something having to do with the pedestrian fatalities and what percentage there was. And my guess is, and go correct me if I'm wrong, that the fatalities in terms of the percentages of what was causing the fatalities were sort of for overall collisions. But when you have, say, close to 50% are pedestrians and bicyclists, those the causes of the collisions may be very different for those types of collisions. So we have to be very careful about taking sort of the general data and then applying it to more specific type issues, such as like pedestrians. So what, going forward, the kinds of things I would like to see is to see, for pedestrians, how do we break down the causes of pedestrian fatalities if pedestrians are something we're going to focus on a particular conversation, and then have data specific to pedestrians, not sort of overall. And then the second thing that I wanted to point out, and again, it's not a criticism, but I have seen in other places where I've done this work, which is this high injury network, and I've come to become a little skeptical about the high injury network in terms of the way that it's sometimes figured out, because in statistics there's this thing called the clustering effect, and we have to be very careful that we're not just simply, because things don't happen evenly across the board. Statistically things tend to cluster, and then when we do an analysis like this and we draw a circle around the cluster, but that's just sort of statistically, that's kind of how it worked out that way. If you had another 5-year period, you might find the cluster in a different place. So just in terms of data, just those two comments that I wanted to make, and if somebody wanted to respond to any of them, you're welcome to. But
all right.
Next, we
Next
have
question.
Mr. Scott.
Yeah, thanks. I was a little unclear on how you arrived at the strategies in the plan. And I skimmed through the plan itself, and I didn't see any real analysis of the data. Were these strategies developed based on analysis of crashes in Phoenix that we're just not seeing? Or is it based on standard road safety practices or just community preferences? Wasn't clear to me.
Yeah, this is Reed. Basically, we looked at like the FHWA's crash modification clearinghouse that has a lot of engineering approaches to safety issues. There's also the strategies that work that's developed by NHTSA. So we try to pull from a national perspective the types of strategies that address specific types of problems, and then move those forward to say, are they implementable? Is it does it relate to the issues that we have going on here?
Yeah, well, I would just encourage, in the same way that we did with the pedestrian fatality study, we actually looked at all of the fatal crashes and read every report to try to answer the questions that Jay was asking. What exactly caused these crashes here in Phoenix, not just generally. And that informed the recommendations that we had. I think that's the right way to go, is to base our actions on analysis of local crashes. Thank you.
Okay, next.
We have Michael Jones.
Yeah, so I know one of you were referencing that data from earlier showing what causes accidents. Looking at right now, it seems the top three for fatalities at least were left turns, angles, and pedestrians. So I'm wondering if it's more of like technical stuff like signage and lights and everything, or if it's more just human error, and what kind of approach we can go based off fixing human error, like better driving tests or something like that. But that's just something I kind of noticed, and I noticed the comments in as well. I will agree that District 8 really does need bike lanes and better routes, because my area specifically, there's a lot of areas known as like don't use this like pathway, because that's where everybody gets hit. I install a pedestrian walkway because so many pedestrians were getting hit. That those crashes I mentioned before, there was 3 of them. They weren't like 5 lights apart. They were in between one light and another light. And so they're happening so much that people are now memorizing where not to go and where to watch out. because there's so much jaywalking, there's so many crashes, so many vulnerable spots where you can get hit. So I just want to kind of voice that. Yeah.
And I think it's a good point that some crashes are, if you dig into why it happened, you can find out a solution that's site specific, maybe, that as opposed to a broad brush solution. Next.
Oh, Chair, if I may, I just
Yes,
wanted to
sir.
kind of cover that generally. So kind of there's a better understanding of how we're using, because everybody is focused on the data piece, that is key to what we're doing, because the data by itself, if you look at all the accidents across the city, it's kind of a shotgun scatter across the city. It's when you start layering in the serious injuries and fatalities that create the high injury network that help guide it, then that's when we can actually see where those locations of intersections and road segments have a higher incidence of fatalities and serious injuries on them. And then that's where we want to focus. And then I know there was some comments about getting into the exact details of what caused or what happened at those locations. That's what we would be doing. Once we know where there's this cluster, as Commissioner Bieber was talking about, of fatalities or serious injuries happening there, then we take the data, and that comes from the police reports and things like that we get to see what's actually going on there, and then using the different strategies that we have in the road safety action plan to define what our countermeasure might be at that specific intersection or that road segment. So that's kind of the process we're going to be using, or we plan to use, when we're looking at tackling safety issues on our roadways, because we want to make sure we're addressing first and foremost where we have the highest incidence of serious injuries, fatalities on the roadway.
Thank you very much. Next, Tricia.
Next is Dan, then Jamie.
Thank you, Tricia. Just had a couple more, one question and two brief comments. I noticed in the membership for the group that it's limited to the police department and the street transportation and city manager's office. But what we're talking about here is really a comprehend, is all hands on deck. And I would honestly like to see some representatives from planning and development, parks, public transportation, and so on, because I think that that in order for this to be a successful, implementation, and for everybody to get the picture, everybody needs to be and have a seat at the table, so to speak. So I mean, I'd like to see something like that happen. My other thing is that what is the overlap with complete streets? Because I see with a lot of the staff reports and project proposals and planning and development, a lot of them cites complete streets, but when it comes down to it, they're not. In order to have complete streets, the streets need to be safe, comfortable, and equitable, usable for everybody, and they are by far not that at all. I mean, is there ways to address that and integrate some of those, those that need some, there needs to be some fundamental changes in that aspect. And, because I'm sorry, just in my mind, if I'm walking down the street and, there's half the sidewalk disappears, or there's a scallop street, and then, it shifts to a, shared use trail, and then there's like, no crosswalks. I mean, all of that is ultimately a result of, planning and coordination through the departments. So I would just like to see if, is that something that's possible, or, is there something that we can make happen?
Yeah. Committee Member Penton, great comments and questions there. I think the first one I'll take is, as I noted before, we have 3 different kind of committees or groups working on the implementation of the Road Safety Action Plan as part of this overall task force. This is just one of them. This is the community group. We also have an executive task force that's more of a higher level group with it across multiple departments, and some of the departments you talk about. not just police and streets, but also fire and planning development and neighborhood services. So that's an executive level group. And then we have a staff level working group that will have a lot of the same membership, but at a more, staff level working, talking through these issues, exactly what you're talking about. And so even though this group, we may have primarily a police department and streets staffing and helping this, the other groups do have multiple departments that will be represented and also contributing to the road safety action plan implementation. I think the other part of your question related to complete streets, any of those things that we have on the books, whether it be complete streets, whether it be Vision Zero, whether it's our active transportation program, those will all help inform the implementation of strategies under the road safety action plan. So I think when we want to, first and foremost, I know I'm very sensitive about things like gaps in sidewalks and infrastructure, but I think one thing we want to focus on first and foremost is trying to make sure if those gaps in infrastructure, those sidewalks are contributing to serious injuries and fatalities at that roadway segment or that intersection, that's where we would want to target investments at. Not necessarily just because we have infrastructure challenges to invest money there to implement if it doesn't necessarily have the same cost benefit ratio when you're talking about saving lives. We want to make sure if we're investing $100,000 in a particular improvement, the idea there is to get the most benefit out of there of saving and reducing serious injuries and fatalities, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, but ultimately it comes down to, everything, all of these things that you were pointing out, do they contribute to? Yes, the intersections in Phoenix are just dangerous. That's this period. There's no, if you've got out here in Levine, we've got, say for example, the Levine Area Conveyance Channel. That's what would be a normal, should be a spine, a major transportation corridor and recreation corridor. But you can't cross. It's got 8 crossings, and 7 of them are unmarked. There's no sign. There's no crosswalks. There's no, so it's unsafe. So people have to walk. Kids go. It crosses 3 schools. So people use this, for riding their bikes to schools, for walking, for any number of things. But when it comes down to it, is the city looking just to gain input and look for department sharing, or is it actually looking to implement, changes to the network and truly make a difference in what happens down the road? That's, what my underlying concern is. But thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Tricia, who do we have up next?
Jamie and then Mr. Uhas.
So my question was, I see that we have a vision status report objective updated every year in fall and published in spring. Is this going to include when we're going to get projects done? And because I don't want to feel like we're creating these projects and it's going to take 4 years to get done. Is there a sense of timeline that we're going to get some of these projects and the high fatality intersections complete?
Do you want to take that one, Reed?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, part of the road safety action plan is to have a report out and do that on a regular basis. So as part of my project manager's report coming on the next agenda item, I'm going to talk about some of the funding that we received, some of the projects we've already implemented, what we have in planning and things like that. So I do want this to be transparent. So this is the projects we selected, this is the stage that they're in, and then these are the ones that have been completed.
Okay, so we have one more hand up. Even free.
Joe?
Yes. Look, I think you touched. I think you addressed this, but I just want to emphasize Dan's point. Look, the best way to fix a problem is to avoid it to begin with. And I do hope, whether it's directly or indirectly, we do have the chance to interact with planning and development, engineering, whoever it is, to talk about design. Hawk walks are a good example. No 2 hawk walks in the city appear to be the same because the circumstances are different. But it's apparent to me that there's design flaws that could have been avoided or should have been avoided, or now, of course, we all know that because we're going back to fix it. So I would just, again, to Dan's point, I do hope we have a chance to, not just fix existing problems, but how we could avoid them in the future, especially with additional money coming down, which obviously is, we're going to find ways to spend that, including, in new communities that are emerging. The bond measure that's coming up in November, and we're going to see some of money coming in from that as well. So I just think design is really important, and I hope we do have a chance to get into that.
Thank you, Joe. With that, I don't see anybody else's hand raised. So we will move on to item 6, which will once again be Reed with the RSAP Project Manager's Report.
All right, thank you. Tricia, can you pull it up, please? I'm not going to push these buttons here. It might shut down on me. Okay, great. Thank you. For the RSAP Project Manager's Report, the next few slides will address computer applications being developed to enhance the crash analysis and reporting. Then I'll present information regarding the strategies we are implementing specifically related to the RSAP budget and infrastructure projects. Then I will discuss the safety grants recently awarded and the Vision Zero Task Force framework. Next slide, please. So here's a screenshot of the crash dashboard under development. It would allow the users to select a geographic location and sort on parameters such as first harmful event, collision matter, person type, impairment, or incident year. The dashboard could be used to produce high crash listings like the top 10 intersections listed on the right. The tool could be used within the city of Phoenix and by the public with varying levels of data authorization. And this is currently under development, so we're working on that. Next slide, please. So as part of those tools, we want to develop crash summaries. So the crash dashboard that will expedite the crash summaries are also a component of the crash dashboard that will expedite the process to produce our annual crash summaries. Our annual summaries normally contain a wide variety of data fields that usually include severity of the crash, crash type, time of day, day of month, etc. So we normally produce these on a yearly basis for our system as a whole, and then we'll break out pedestrians and bikes and motorcycles or types of the summaries that we've done in the past. Next slide, please. As we mentioned, we were looking at developing some warranting tools. The 3 warranty tools are being modernized to expedite the project selection process. These tools help determine when a location may meet the minimum requirements for the installation of a traffic signal, pedestrian hawk beacon, or a left turn signal. And here's an image of a hawk that directs motor vehicles to stop and thereby gives the right-of-way to pedestrians to cross the road. So that's one of the ones that we've been implementing with some of the safety funds. Next slide. So strategy implementation. So what are we doing to implement the identified strategies? From the engineering lens, the traffic signal modernization and hawks are the primary types of projects receiving RSP funds. Before I get into the other E's, I want to spend a little more time discussing how traffic signal modernization projects relate to the crash data, focus areas, and strategies in the RSAP. And then I'll get back to the other 4 E's. Next slide. With a traffic signal modernization project, we now provide a traffic signal head per through lane. Our previous designs may have had only one overhead signal head over 3 lanes. This provides more visual cues for the users to obey, which has shown to reduce rear end, angle, left turn crashes. 2 luminaires on each corner opposed to 1, so now we're lighting the intersection a little better. And this should reduce nighttime crashes involving pedestrians as there is better lighting on each corner. Emergency vehicle preemption, which has shown to reduce response times by as much as 25%, are installed on all our new signals. The flashing yellow arrow provides a lot of flexibility in controlling left turn movements and preventing left turn crashes. New ADA curb ramps facilitates the safe movement of pedestrians. Battery backup to keep the signals from going dark in power outages. And also pan tilt zoom cameras improves our ability to respond to incidents and modify the traffic signal timing. Next slide, please. So moving on to the other 4 E's. The education lens is currently focused on Safe Routes to School and Scan the Street for Wheels and Feet campaign. Equity component has been used in the selection of safety infrastructure projects and grant applications. Through the enforcement lens, the RSAP is looking to enhance enforcement near in locations. And again, the evaluation lens is being used to provide reporting and tracking of crash trends and evaluate strategies implemented. Next slide. RSAP budget and construction projects. Here's a quick snapshot of the past 2 years of RSAP funding, the current fiscal year and next year. Now, there are numerous other budgets that we use to address safety, but these are the funds council budgeted specifically to the Vision Zero RSAP. So far, we have constructed 3 traffic signal modernization projects and 2 more scheduled for construction this fiscal year. And some of the funding has been used to supplement 4 other federally funded traffic signal modernization projects that ended up being underfunded due to the current inflation. We currently have 8 traffic signal modernization projects in design and 1 new traffic signal in design. We currently have 2 Hawks in design as well using the RSAP funds. RSAP funding has also been used for the development of the RSAP, of course, and the grant applications and some additional research. Next slide, please. Additional funding awarded. The city was recently awarded $460,000 in Safe Streets and Roads for All Supplemental Action Plan grant funds to prepare a pedestrian risk network and to look at speed limit review. We had submitted for a total of $37 million in implementation grant, but only received the supplemental portion. Unfortunately, only about 20% of the implementation grants were awarded nationally. And after a debrief, a review of the winning grant proposals and familiarizing ourselves with new requirements, we will be revising our previous application and resubmitting for up to $25 million in implementation funds. And that application will be due by July 10th. The city was also recently awarded $4.5 million of federal highway safety improvement funds to modernize 4 traffic signals and construct 1 new traffic signal. Those projects are using RSP funds for design and are expected 100% federal funding for construction. Next slide, please. The Vision Zero Task Force is comprised of 3 community advisory, is comprised of the Community Advisory Committee, Road Safety Action Team, and the Executive Task Force. The Community Advisory Committee will review quarterly updates from the RSAP implementation team, provide feedback and recommendations to both the implementation team and executive teams, request future agenda items, and coordinate with related city council offices. The RSAP implementation team is responsible for carrying out and tracking the progress of the RSAP implementation and meets monthly. Executive Task Force provides the overarching guidance, leadership, resources, and departmental liaisons for the implementation of the RSAP and meets quarterly. Next slide, please. So that's a brief summary of the recent activities currently ongoing or have been completed related to the RSAP funds. So I think, again, we have some time for some questions.
Ready? I see Abigail has hers up first.
Yes, thank you. I had a couple comments.
Abigail, we can't hear you.
You guys hear me now?
No, it sounds like I can't hear you. I can just barely tell you're talking.
Should I continue or wait till Caleb?
I can hear you.
How does lighting actually promote safety for pedestrians? Vehicles do have their own lights, and it doesn't matter if vehicles can see you. If they're already going past the speed limit and running red lights, they're still going to kill you. And the cameras, they focus on cameras too, and cameras are only focusing on after a pedestrian or a cyclist is killed on the road, and it's like post the event, and these are all distractions from what is actually proven to save lives, which is narrowing roads and having protected pedestrian and bike focused areas, which is proven to save lives. and it decreases the conflict between drivers and pedestrians and cyclists. Thank you.
Next comment. I believe is that Michael?
Yeah, kind of want to just echo the last person who kind of said something. I mainly just have comments to make. That lights and everything like that. I would believe that enforcement is something big that we'd have to focus on because at least for my area in District 8, cameras don't really, there's no like traffic cameras, or at least the ones that, penalize people for speeding or running red lights. So there's no fear of speeding or going on a red light. I have an intersection where it says no right turns on, no turns left or right on a red, and people will just blatantly ignore it because they can and they will not be penalized for it. So I feel like enforcement is going to be something big that we have to focus on. And I don't know if anybody noticed, but in the pictures that we've seen, there's not really a lot of people walking because Arizona is a very car dependent state. By the end of May, we're projected to reach 100 degrees, and I don't think a lot of people are going to be able to go very far in 100 degrees. There's no shades, there's nothing protecting us from the heat, so it's very car dependent. And that's just something I really wanted to point out. And with bike lanes, that's something we also have to implement, and not just by implementing them, but also protecting them as well. Because I have a colleague at my agency who bikes a lot, and he says that he gets clipped a lot by cars because there's nothing protecting his lane from a street lane. So those are the only comments I wanted to make.
Thank you. Do we have any more comments on this item? Yes, sir.
Chairman Tom, thank you so much. I just similarly about enforcement and education, and I see Dan's got his hand raised as well, just to point out to the chairman. And on education, there is a lot we need to do, but I think the design aspect of this is absolutely paramount. We have really fast cars right on top of sidewalks throughout my neighborhood and throughout the city of Phoenix. And changing speed limits and enforcement is maybe a piece of that, but people are going to go the speed that the road encourages. I live next to 7th Avenue. The neighborhoods around me call it Highway 7th because people treat it like a highway, and it's a really weird kind of a street. It's kind of a road. Drivers are confused. It's a design flaw, and it's kind of a schizophrenic road that doesn't really know what it wants to be, and it leads to a lot of, well, you can see in the high injury network, that leads to a lot of deaths, including right there on 7th Avenue. And we've got to make some bold design choices to separate pedestrians, separate people who are pushing strollers, separate young kids from fast cars. That is absolutely paramount. Bike lanes are a piece of that if they're protected, but also moving sidewalks and having that buffer is, it's hard. I get it. It's hard because it's not the way Phoenix is designed right now, but we've got to do hard things here.
Dan, your hand was up next, I believe.
Thank you. So with regards to like the warrant tools, determining what goes where and how, I'd like to see, pedestrian and bicyclists get, preferred, crossing. So when a pedestrian comes up to a crosswalk, they hit the signal, boom, they're able to, there's a very short delay, they're able to cross, and then traffic can resume. Same thing with bicycles. If the light or the pad in the street detects a bicycle, that will trigger a quicker change of the light. But like to what Reed was saying, the design is crucial. So there's a recent study that came out that when there's a pedestrian that's hit by a vehicle, or pedestrians in general or 50 get the injuries that they incur when they're hit by a truck or an SUV are 55% greater than that if they were, was hit by a regular sedan or small vehicle. The traffic that you're seeing on the road, the vehicles that are on the road nowadays are bigger. And with all, a lot of them are going to EV, they're heavier. It takes a lot farther for them to stop. And, and it's pretty much, they get going quick as you can in the blink of an eye. So this not only is that an increased danger to bicyclists and pedestrians, but it also, increases the wear and tear on the roadways too, would cause, more frequent repairs and resurfacing and all that. So implementing, systemic changes that would, result in lower speeds, narrower roadways, rather than these wide open, freeways through our town, is I think, is a smart way to go, because you're going to achieve, less fatalities or injuries, lower speeds, less frequent repair on the roadways, and it's going to require better design by developers and the city. So getting that, and then, you throw safe routes to school in there. All of that is, tied together. So I would like to see, us take a look at those numbers, and see, or those different areas that we can, find policies and ways to kind of, look at those things. So thank you. I know we're gotta move on to the next, so I appreciate it.
Is it Amy? Are you the one with the bow tie?
Yes.
All right, your hand was up next.
Thank you. I kind of what everyone else is saying with the design. I would like us to look at other cities really being innovator and not giving up at the intersection and really pushing forward and just trying road diets, things that can really help our communities and connect them and just feel safer to walk as a pedestrian. I don't own a car. I walk everywhere in Phoenix, and there's definitely points where it's 110 degrees. You got to choose. Am I going to walk a mile up the block, or are you going to cut? Even with the hot crossing, sometimes it could still feel scary. So I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
I believe, is it Jay? No.
Hi, thank you. So, there's been a lot of talk about a couple of different things here, and I just wanted to comment on a couple of them. I know that there was some talk about enforcement. Enforcement only goes so far. What you have to do, and I think this is what Ed was alluding to, is something that we call self-enforcing roadways, which means that if you have a roadway and, for whatever reason, because there's a lot of pedestrians and a lot of bicyclists in the area, and you want people to go 35 miles an hour, you have to build a roadway for 35 miles an hour. You can't expect putting a 35 mile an hour posted speed limit on there and then enforcing the heck out of it is going to make any difference whatsoever. That falls into the category of everything we've done so far and hasn't worked. So I know, there was some mention about running red lights. I know that the city is in the process of looking at their signal timing and better implementation of visibility for our traffic signals and things of that nature. So what I think the best approach is, let's not have the incident happen in the first place, then to go out and try to penalize somebody for doing something or something that we encourage them to do. Same thing has to do with pedestrians. You can say that pedestrians are crossing the street and jaywalking, but there may not be a safe place for them to cross the street for very far distances. So you've kind of forced errors. So we have to look at that and where those types of countermeasures make sense. I do want to make one other comment though about road diets, and I know that people have talked about this a little bit. You have to be very careful about that. I lived in LA. We saw where they put in road diets in some places, and unfortunately, what you end up with, because you still have to get people from point A to point B in a reasonable amount of time, that what happens is people start avoiding those roads that have been road dieted, and then they start cutting through neighborhoods. They cutting through sort of streets that are not really designed for a lot of traffic. You have people, kids playing out in front of their homes and things of that nature. So you have to be careful of the unintended consequences of that. I like to say that traffic seeks its own level, like water, and And if you kind of choke off traffic in one area, it's just going to go somewhere else, and maybe that other place is more dangerous. You have to take a more holistic approach and look at things as opposed to say, well, you know, I'd like this road to be slower, so therefore we're going to do a road diet here. But you know, that may force traffic other places that you don't want it to be either. So and this is just sort of an overall comment, just as we get into discussions and conversations about those sorts of things. Thank you, I appreciate it.
And let's see, I do not remember your name. Tracy, what's the last gentleman that hasn't spoken?
James?
Is that me?
Yes, that is.
Okay, yeah, you know, Jay hit it. I put my hand up because I wanted to talk about road diets, and I've heard a couple folks talking about those, and road diets concern me greatly. I know Scottsdale, I saw where they voted there to put one in just south of the Old Town Scottsdale. It's going to be very interesting to see how that turns out. You know, we need our transportation grid in Phoenix, and it's a great grid and all as far as cities go for getting around, but we need to keep the traffic moving, and to institute road diets is just very concerning. We need to look long and hard before we try to do a thing like that. That's all.
Thank you, Jay. Okay, I don't see any other hands there, so I'm gonna call that done. And we're gonna move over
Chair
to.
Callow?
Yes, what?
Chair Callow, real quickly, I did want to note that we have Lieutenant Junkie on the call from the police department. He was going to give an update quickly on the police department's efforts and what they've been doing. So
Okay.
Lieutenant Junkie?
Yeah, hi, everybody. My name is Seth Jonke. I'm the lieutenant in charge of the Phoenix Police Traffic Unit, commonly referred to as Motors. So I'll just give you a real quick update on what we've been doing. Currently, I only have about 35 officers assigned to me and 7 supervisors. That's citywide on 3 different shifts. So we've been doing our best to work with a data-based enforcement action. About just over a year ago, we transitioned from just taking accidents, which is after the fact that something happened, to enforcement, actually trying to slow people down, write tickets, and make roads safer. Since we transitioned to that, it's actually going pretty well. We're working off what we call a TIP program, or a traffic impact program. Again, working off a database system, we're identifying areas with high speeds or high collisions. And then we're sending our motors in as a group to work those areas to slow people down and write tickets. Since the beginning of the year, we've done about 14 total tip projects in every precinct in the city, so all across the city. Written about, well, just over 1,000 tickets. And I can't give you any official numbers, but the numbers I ran the other day from 2022 year to date to 2023 year to date, it looks like overall accidents, we're down about 1,100 accidents. So it appears our enforcement action is working at this point. Looking forward to working with this project, working really closely with streets. They've got some great things coming with their traffic management center to give us even more data and better places to enforce, and seeing if we can slow more people down and save some more lives.
Since hands popped up all over the place on my computer, so I think you're gonna be popular. Let's start with Abigail.
Dan. Oh, sorry about that.
Go ahead, Abigail.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. I had a clarifying question. So you said it's reducing. It's the enforcement is helpful, but there isn't like a document where the data is like is shown and supported.
So I can't give you official numbers. We have a section, a research section that will do official numbers for the city. So all I have at this point, I didn't have a chance to run those numbers and get those officially. What I have at my point is what I keep for my unit. What I keep for my unit is showing overall accident reports are down. So it is possible to get the official numbers. It just takes a little bit of time.
So there's nothing easy for like the public to see if they're interested in seeing how the enforcement is actually working.
I would assume that would be part of this program, that as they were talking about before, having dashboards, that type of thing for everybody to log on to. But I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
I would imagine it's very hard to specify that the accident reduction is due solely to enforcement, because it's an event that didn't happen, and it's hard to prove an event that didn't happen. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's just okay. That was my editorial comment. We'll go on to more questions. Dan, Ed, you keep raising your hand.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Tom. I appreciate it. And thank you, Lieutenant, for joining us today. It's very important. My question's about cars parked illegally in bike lanes. It is just personally, as I go around the city, it is an epidemic that I see of cars parked illegally in the bike lanes, obstructing bike lanes, and it creates a really unsafe situation for myself and my family, which we try to use bike lanes and then have to go into the street because there's a car obstructing bike lane illegally. I call the Phoenix non-emergency line and report it, and I wait around and try to do my best to follow up, and I've never, and maybe the few dozen times I've called, maybe multiple dozen times I've called, never seen anybody ticketed and never seen any action. So I guess it's a two-part question. What are you doing right now to crack down on cars parked illegally obstructing bike lanes? And two, what should I do as a citizen here, committee member concerned about cars parked illegally being unsafe? Should I be still calling the Phoenix non-emergency line? It doesn't seem to be working. What do you recommend I do?
So yes, absolutely call the non-emergency line. As everybody knows, we are incredibly short-staffed in the police department, as other city departments. We do actually have a parking enforcement detail that's comprised of civilians. That's what they do. They write parking tickets. So when you call the non-emergency line, you can specifically ask for them, and that's their job to go out there and do that. When you call the non-emergency line, even if you don't see somebody come out, what it's doing is it's creating a log for us. And I mentioned that database thing. Then we can look it up, see where these calls are coming from, and I can direct my resources appropriately.
Thank you.
Dan.
Thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant Janke. So you said that you operate off of a TIP. Is that, first question would be, is that a reporting that the public is able to report directly to, like, say they've got, cross the cut through traffic, speeding, whatever. But more importantly, like Jay was saying, with hazards of obstructions in the bike lanes, vehicles parked in a manner that crosses, driveways, it blocks any number of things that would cause somebody to go out into the street lanes themselves. But is that something that people can report to? Additionally, has there been consideration, or if not, I would like to see some type of civilian report, civilians being able to report vehicles parked in the bike lanes, and have complaint processes in place that makes that kind of like enhances the self-enforcing type of thing. But you have to, the plan, the road safety action plan and Vision Zero call for community engagement and community participation. I think a great way to do that is have an education campaign, and then allow for that opportunity for that for people to report when they see vehicles parked there, that they can do so, because like many others feel the frustration, they're not able to proceed safely with their family or any number of activities. And I think that that doesn't do anything that I think more or less hinders people wanting to adopt a more bicycle friendly city, because as has been said through this meeting tonight, there isn't a lot for what's being proposed. There's not a lot of teeth to it, and there's not a lot, people parked in the bike lanes, people running red lights, people doing all kinds of illegal U-turns in school zones. I mean, like I said earlier, the activity I see is mind-boggling, but there's no consequences for it, and there needs to be. Then people need to be held accountable, and people think they can speed through this, these communities, especially out here in Levine, I'm sure everywhere in Phoenix. but you know, the roads need to be safer, just flat out. And you know, thank you for the job you guys are doing at the police department to help, you know, achieve that, you know, to meet that goal. But what can we do? What else can we? What are ways that we can, you know, enhance that or help you reach that goal in a more proactive and, you know, engaged way with the community? Um, but you know, so I'll leave it at that. But thank you if you can answer any of those questions.
Michael. I believe it's Michael.
Yeah. So I worked with the police department a lot here at the state capitol. And from what I've seen is while we want to fix how we can all agree, we do need to fix the design of streets, how streets are structured, and just overall operate. Until that is fixed, I believe enforcement would be the best way as a temporary thing until we reach that goal. I believe in Paradise Valley, when they tried out new aspects such as like photo radars, they were able to reduce crashes by 45%. So my question would be, do you believe that enforcement is the way that we keep down crashes? Would you think that's like the, or is it something that isn't as effective as other?
So enforcement is my job, so I'm a little biased there. So yes, I think it is important, but like one of your members said earlier, it's not everything. It takes a holistic approach to deal with it. I think enforcement is incredibly important. As to the traffic cameras, that's a whole political mess that I don't want to get into. And there's actually state laws going through now that may prohibit that. I won't give you my opinion, but yes, enforcement's important.
Thank you, officer. Do you have a follow-up, Michael, or your hand is still raised?
No, but I do know what laws you're talking about with photo radars. I've been well too into those weeds. Yeah.
And did you have a follow-up? Your little hand on my things. Okay, I'm gonna take that as a no, since you're still muted as well.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to put my hand down.
Okay, well, thank you very much, officer. I should say lieutenant. And we will wrap that up and move on to the next item. And Brianna, this meeting's been going on a while. Could we maybe suggest that everybody take opportunity to read the bylaws? Does anybody have any questions about the bylaws, or is your presentation fairly quick?
No, I was just going to highlight some of the main ones, but if everybody's comfortable that they have a copy of the bylaws and don't have any questions, I'm comfortable moving on. Although Agenda 8, you still need to focus on the election of the vice chairperson.
I wanted to get to that. I wanted to get to that item,
Okay.
which is the election. So does anyone have any questions about the bylaws?
Yeah, real quickly. What's the preferred manner? So if we have suggestions or we, you know, propose, like say, you know, there's text amendments or you know, ordinances that we, you know, would like to propose. What's the preferred manner and way do we do that?
Do you mean like to the bylaws specifically, or to just anything in general?
Yeah, no, because it's under section 221-2-1804 that we can provide feedback and recommendations regarding the action plan. And then the other one is to under section 1805 recommendations on ordinance and ordinance changes. What's the preferred way to do that?
All of that would need to come through the committee. An individual could not in and of themselves submit something.
Right.
So the way to do that would be to request a item on a future agenda so that it can be posted and people will be aware of the action we are discussing and could comment if they had plans wanted to. So you'll see tonight there'll be a request for future agenda items.
Okay.
On item
Thank
11.
you. I appreciate that.
And Brianna nodded her head up and down, so I must have said the right thing. The next item is election of a vice chairperson. And the critical thing here is if I die, that person becomes chairperson, or if I am not able to attend the meeting, that person steps up and takes over. And so to kind of kick it off, I would like to just ask if anyone would like to be vice chairperson and throw their name in the ring themselves. And if nobody comes forward, I'll ask for nominations from others. I'm not hearing anybody that wants to jump on this job. Here we go. Ed, you're on mute, but you're.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I appreciate it. I just wanted to suggest, getting I think the young people are the future here. Not too long ago, I was one of those young people, but not so much anymore. So I just would suggest that we have some age diversity. They're going to be the ones inheriting all of these designs that hopefully we're coming up with. So would just, I don't think this would be an issue to have one of our non-voting student members be the vice chair. So we just suggest that. And I've seen Abby Tomich in different public meetings before. I think she's handles herself very well. And just since there's no one stepping up, would just encourage her.
Can he speak, Ed? I believe he's disagreeing with you.
Chair Callow and Committee Member Hermes, I don't believe I'd have to get a legal ruling, but I'm pretty sure that non-voting members are not eligible to be chair or vice chair. You have to be selected from the 11 members who are voting members.
Well, in that case, I'm not looking for anybody to have to get a legal ruling. Those lawyers, man, they're just too much red tape. But I'm familiar with the open meeting law, and I'm the president of a school board, so happy to do it, or happy if the need would arise.
All right, we have one individual who has expressed an interest. Any others? Feel free to jump in, Dan. Well, with that, I'm open to a motion to nominate Ed Hermes as the vice chair. Do we have a motion? I've seen heads nod up and down. Somebody say a motion. Say they yes.
Motion to make Ed Hermes vice chair of the committee.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All righty. All in favor say aye by raising your hand. Any opposed? Now hold your hand up. Ed, you are you're opposed and for it. Is that right, Jay?
No, I thought we were still voting yet. Yes.
Okay. Well, congratulations, Ed.
Well,
you're going to be getting this job quicker than you thought.
Well, I'll let the record reflect that I try to nominate other people first, but I appreciate it, and thank you for your votes.
Alrighty. Okay. Next item is approval of the 2023 Community Advisory Committee and meeting schedule. We have I don't have it in front of me now, but it's 3 more meetings this calendar year. And does anyone, Dan, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I would like to, I think Abigail mentioned it earlier. I'm in agreement with her on this. I think quarterly meetings is kind of, doesn't really serve any purpose, other than just having an informational update. I think we need to meet more frequently, whether it's every other month or monthly, but definitely not quarterly. I think we need to be more frequently than that.
Part of that's going to be a impact of what staff is going to have ready to bring forward and how often they're going to have anything prepared to share with us that's different. And I kind of tossed that out to Kenny and Brianna to see what they have to say.
Thanks, Chair. And I would just say right now, the way it was set up is that the executive task force, which is an internal group of executives within the city, would be meeting quarterly. This group would be meeting quarterly, and the staff level group would be meeting monthly. And Chair, you were exactly right. I want to make sure if we have meetings that we have valuable information to provide for you, where we can be prepared to provide what is being asked for. If a quarterly is not sufficient and the majority feels that we should be meeting more frequently, I would probably suggest if we do that, go that route, we would do something like every other month at the beginning, and we can then evaluate whether that's something that needs to be more frequent than that or less frequently than that. I just want to make sure we are appreciative of respecting the time of the committee members and what we bring forward to each meeting.
Okay, Jay. I haven't called on you in a while.
Yeah, thank you. I would agree that I think that quarterly meetings are problematic in terms of actually getting anything done. You're talking about 4 in a whole year. Obviously, it's going to depend on people's availability, but I also just could have questioned the whole premise of the idea that we can't have a meeting unless the streets or the other sections of the Vision Zero folks kind of bring something to us. I don't think any of us expect this to be sort of a rubber stamp on whatever else is being done out there. And I know that that's probably not the intention, but quarterly meetings probably would sort of just kind of lead to that, because there's so much work that's being done behind the scenes and through that quarter. And I just feel that if we want to take some, give some direction to, because we're only advisory, we want to give some direction to the other folks that have some power to actually implement or do something or bring back information. If we ask for information back on something and we got to wait 3 months to hear that and to be able to, even just discuss it, I think it would be sort of problematic. So I would certainly be in favor of doing something more frequently than the quarterly thing, and also not just things that are brought by the main Vision Zero task force or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would agree with Jay. I think we need to meet more often. I think we haven't got to the agenda item portion yet, but there's a lot of passion here in this committee. And I think you're going to see probably a lot of folks saying, hey, I like this agenda item, like that. We're blown way past our 6:30 ending time period. I thank you to staff who are staying late, by the way. But there's a lot of passion. I think we need to definitely meet more often. I would also say I would like an in-person meeting. I think that would be important. We are a committee that is about transit and commuting, and I think us all gathering in the same place, however you move, whether it's walking, biking, car, public transit, gathering in the same place would be really helpful. Also, there's something that is sometimes lost if it's just on Zoom or WebEx, that you can't kind of meet people, shake people's hands, and kind of connect in that way. So, having we do it as a school board. We have an option for people to attend remotely, like especially the public, and do public comment remotely. But our main committee is in person. I would recommend doing that and meeting more often. And then finally, would love to have at least some of our meetings rotate a bit around, especially around our high injury network, and being adjacent to our high or on our high injury network, so we're all going to the same place. Maybe part of that discussion is, look, you all came through this half mile of high injury network area. What did you see? What did you observe? We got to get focused on that 3% of the most dangerous areas. And I think moving some of our meetings out into the community where people can attend would be great.
I believe Michael was next. I've been watching these little hands pop up.
I'm just gonna echo what everybody else is saying. It should be monthly, because there's a lot of things that happen even on just a month-to-month basis. And when you're collecting data, by the time you get to that next quarterly meeting, that information might be irrelevant. And I feel like, yes, we should have information to hear when we get here, but we shouldn't just be here to listen. We should also be here to voice what our community members are saying. And if I hear someone says, in next week, and I'm not able to let everybody else know until 3 months down the line, that's kind of we're going to be seen as someone who just comes in once in a while, listens to what's happening, and kind of give our opinion, rather than meeting on a monthly basis, actually pushing for a change to be made. So I feel like a monthly kind of meeting would allow us to make changes maybe faster and just keep up with everything that's happening, not on a quarterly basis, but on a monthly basis. So that's the only comment I wanted to make.
Fortunately, with the open meeting law and having to have items posted for action, we can discuss things, but we can't take action on something unless we know about it in advance and it's posted. So we can't just come in and you got an idea that says, let's narrow Indian School Road, and everybody says, yeah, let's vote on that. we can't do that because we haven't posted it for action. Just to keep that in the back of your mind.
I was
Jamie.
just gonna say that that's one of the reasons why I think we need to have meetings more often, because if at a particular meeting we ask to be putting on the agenda, and the next time it has to be on the agenda, you're now talking almost a half a year. I just want to understand that.
Yeah. Jamie, did you have something? Mute, you're on your mute button.
Sorry, I apologize. Thank you. Kind of echoing what everyone else is saying about meeting monthly. I think the committee members are passionate. I think the community is very passionate. And if meeting monthly means we can save more lives and get things done quicker, I think that's the best case scenario. And we should definitely be meeting on a monthly basis.
Is there anyone that doesn't want to meet on a monthly basis besides staff and myself? I was promised 4 meetings a year.
Chair Callow, if I may, one thing with the bylaws and what was put forward with the creation of the committee, there is on section 2-1803, it says the committee shall hold quarterly meetings. I understand the desires potentially of the committee members to meet more frequently. I will take this back tomorrow and get some legal opinion on it. I would want to make sure we at least have the next meeting set forth of what we're planning on doing, whether that's virtual or in person or hybrid, a date for that. And then we can obviously communicate out as staff to the committee members about what we need to do to potentially, if we're not allowed to meet more than quarterly, I just want to make sure if we're able to do that, so we can give you a ruling on that, and then we can figure out if the desire is to meet monthly or every other month, we can work around that desire and get the schedule worked for that.
Alrighty. So I guess the action would be for staff to investigate whether we could change the bylaws to allow for a monthly meeting or bi-monthly meeting, whatever the case may be that the committee prefers. Would that sound like a good action item, or would that be within the scope of what was posted?
Yes, I think that would be, and I would also say format if there's a desire among the format of the meeting, virtual, in person, or hybrid. I know committee member Menjivar is also has her hand up, so I just want to make sure she gets a chance to speak too.
Yes, I'm totally agree if we met monthly. The only thing for me as with little ones, it's really hard for me to be in person. Like right now, I supposed to be like an hour and a half, and I already told them I'll be hour and a half, and here we are. And I understand we have a lot of things to discuss and a lot of passion, but it's really hard for me as a mother with little ones to be in person.
There's always the option for, whether it's an in-person meeting or not, for you to attend remotely.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, Jay.
Yeah, just real quick. So it sounds like I'm looking at the ordinance. I know we're calling it a bylaws, but it's technically the enabling ordinance. It seems like there may have to be an action from the council to adjust that, or at least say like a minimum of quarterly meetings, and then we have the option to do more. That may be required. I don't think it's a particularly big hurdle for a council member to put that on the agenda and sort of ask for that as a clarification. So maybe it's something that Keeney can go back and ask the folks about whether that's necessary and whether that's appropriate.
Yeah, I think that's the gist of what we would be doing tonight. We would be asking them. The committee obviously prefers to meet more frequently. What action needs to be taken, if any, by council or to allow that to happen? And if so, we would prefer to meet on a monthly basis. And then how many people would favor in real life meeting as opposed to a virtual meeting, I guess would be the next question. If that's going to be a proposal, why doesn't somebody put forth a proposal and we will actually vote on that? Does that sound fair, Kenny?
Yeah, that'd be fine. I would say, I would think hearing some people are concerned with virtual versus in person. I think if the direction is move forward with hybrid meetings where we have both the in-person and virtual, I don't know if you need to necessarily act on that, but if that's the desire, we can move forward with that format. in addition to investigating the
I
ordinance
think you
changes.
can always move forward with that, and anybody who chooses not to attend can do it virtually.
And that, Chair, to the extent that you need it, I would move that we have all of our future meetings in a hybrid format, so we have the opportunity to be in person as community members, and the community and community members that need to can also appear as needed virtually.
I have a second.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor, raise your hands. Passes. We're good. And then do we need a motion, Kenny, to have you check into the once a month meeting, or we're just giving you that direction and you'll let us know?
I think I can operate off the direction and the comments here to do that.
I have a quick question. And on the outcome, based on the outcome of, that direction, is that something we would have to wait until the next quarterly meeting to do, or is that something that we could implement going forward right away?
Depending on how Commissioner Penton, depending how we, how the effects is, if it's just a matter of us changing the ordinance to allow that to happen, if it were that way, we can affect that and do that as soon as we can get it on a council agenda, which we have time to be able to do that. I think if that's the direction we go, I think we would provide communications out to the committee members to see when we can have the next meeting. So I wouldn't want, if we're going that route, I would not want to wait until August to hold the next meeting. So no, that would not be the direction.
Kenny, was the plan to have these, if the previous plan was the last Thursday of the month, was that what the schedules were laid out at? Does anybody know?
Third Thursday?
Third Thursday.
So I guess if we wanted to do that moving forward, it would be the third Thursday of next month would be the earliest we could have a meeting. So, got your marching orders?
I do. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, march forward. With that, I believe we've caught everything but call to the public. And we have 4 citizens that have registered to speak. And I believe Tricia, I'm not quite sure how we get them online.
I will unmute them.
Okay. So the first one is Nicole Rodriguez. That's the first name I have. And Nicole, you have 2 minutes to speak, and we basically go ahead.
Okay. I'm from the Midtown, Uptown region. I do know a handful of folks on this board, but I'm really excited about the students that are on here, the ASU student, Michael, and we got the 2 high school students. Thank you guys so much for your time, for serving as a volunteer, because this is huge, having your voice here. And one thing that I wanted to comment on, one thing you saw in the chat, I commented quite a bit already, but one additional thing that I wanted to bring up with the committee is always being cognizant of those who cannot provide public comment, the people who don't have the same privileges like you and I. And even though it may not seem like we're very privileged, but there's a lot of people who just cannot commit to taking the time out from their multiple jobs and various things that they're doing. And I really appreciate too that we have someone like Rosa on this committee. We need more moms engaged on this, and parents, I should say. And we have Ed as well, because some of our most vulnerable users out there are children, the folks who don't have a voice, and the elderly community who rely on us as they get older to drive them around everywhere, because we're not designing roads to be safe and compatible for all the different uses in our ADA community. So those are the folks that that are going to be different than a lot of us who serve here or call in like we are doing. That I urge you to think of them and try to look at things through their lens and walk in their shoes, or what it's like for them to roll around in our hostile landscape of Phoenix. And it's very data driven. As you will see, there's a lot of us who have commented. We've been invested in this for a long time, like most of you have, and everything is very data driven. So there's a lot of homework. I know it's a big lift, but I'm excited everyone wants to meet more frequently because it is needed. It's vital. And once again, thank you guys for your time. I'm really excited. It's a really great breath of fresh air, and staff as well. I know we don't always see eye to eye, but thank you also for your time. And I'll leave it with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Our next speaker was registered with Stacy Champion. Stacy, can you get her on, Tricia?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening. I'll kind of echo Nicole that I'm actually like probably hopeful for the first time in a long time that you all are passionate about this issue. Good evening, everyone. My name is Stacy Champion. I've been advocating for safer streets in Phoenix for 16 years now, especially for those who walk and bike out of necessity versus just recreation. I reside in Midtown Phoenix near 7th Street and Indian School. There isn't a week that goes by where my citizen app isn't alerting me regularly to pedestrians and cyclists being hit and oftentimes killed on our dangerous by design city streets. As many of you already pointed out, we basically have roads that function like highways running through our neighborhoods and urban core, big wide lanes, extremely fast speeds, and big vehicles. There's, in my opinion, too much focus on those who recreate and moving traffic quickly versus a deep dive on how and where many folks travel by foot or bike through our city. And meaningful changes to protect people. And the number of unsheltered people who are hit and left to die in our streets is staggering. I don't feel safe riding bike with my daughter on the majority of our streets, and crossing streets on foot here is like playing Frogger. I would encourage you all to watch the Street Project documentary. It's on YouTube. I put a link. It will tell you how to make our streets safer. And by 2050, I will be dead or certainly very, very old. And I find that the City of Phoenix's plan is extremely car-centric, which doesn't really surprise me. And I'm so happy you all want to meet monthly. And just even going through that plan, you know, things like it's going to take until 2027 to develop a pedestrian safety toolkit is ridiculous. In my opinion, I could make that in a week, and I'm not a city. Same with the plan to implement annual improvements to mitigate risk factors by 2027. I would just ask the city, not all of you, is this a real priority or not? Because too many people are dying. And I thank you all so very much for your time and passion. And thanks for finally giving me some hope. And I hope that your voices aren't silenced. Thanks.
Thank you, Stacy. Our next speaker will be Suzanne Day. Do we have Suzanne on?
Hello, this is Suzanne. Thank you. You cut out just for a second. I will echo Stacy. Appreciate you all. Thank you ever so much. I wish you could see me. This is fantastic, and I'm excited to have you up to bat. Consider me a resource, please. I work for Valley Metro, and so I would be delighted to help answer questions around transit and bikes. I've lived in Phoenix all my life. I ride bikes in Central Phoenix. Ed knows me. I did raise my hand and say I would be delighted to help with a bicycle school bus to one of those schools. I think we can swing this. It looks to me like we're agreed, but I wanted to echo what Stacy said. Some of us are doing this for fun. Some of us have choices and some of us don't. And the future is coming where fewer people will have that latitude, those choices. We need to be doing everything we can to enable bicycling because it's even less expensive for you, the city. It's easier on the infrastructure. Fewer collisions, fewer lawsuits. That's all. Thanks so much, you guys. Carry on, and I am with you.
Thank you, Suzanne. And our last speaker that was registered was Ryan Boyd.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Ryan Boyd with the Urban Phoenix Project. Happily here to support the amazing stuff and happy to hear the great kind of work that's been done here. Congratulations on 2.5 hours. You guys are in the big leagues now. And in theme of my comments to act rapidly, I'll make this comment short so you can get on to the rest of your day. With that in mind, just wanted to echo, obviously, you've heard it already from my great peers with the other activists here today that have done many more years than I have, frankly, in this sphere. But we're excited to hear what's going on here. I've been heartened that Council and Mayor Gallego appointed such, frankly, great people. This has been a great conversation to actually go on this long. And just wanted to emphasize, though, that while there is a lot of data to collect, there's also a lot of data that's been collected, as you all have seen in your own individual work, as well as what we've seen at the Phoenix level. And we would encourage action where it's appropriate. There are many different things ranging from street specifications that might be discussed here in the upcoming general plan update to the construction of hawk crosswalks, as well as protected bike lanes that, frankly, Phoenix needs to act on quickly to start to change the trend. We still see so many deaths on our streets, and we're frankly quite frightened because it seems like we're trying to keep on having stuff happen, and sometimes the action just is to study and to continue to study. And at a certain point, we do have to act to really make our street system safer so that people can actually have the freedom to study, because they won't have an issue with an injury or death on the streets. In fact, a little bit discouraged from the fact that I had a conversation with somebody at an event tonight who had told me that they no longer bike because they had been hit and injured about a month ago in Central Phoenix on their bicycle. So this is really important work. Really proud to see what you guys have done. And once again, thank you so much for your service, and looking forward to some frequent meetings upcoming. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And let's see. Request for future agenda items is the next item on the it's the next item. Does anyone have any requests for a specific future agenda item at this time?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'd like to have somebody look into civilian enforcement for hazardous road obstructions, namely vehicles parking in the roadway. To look how we can create a civilian reporting program for that, and hopefully get something adopted.
Ed.
Thanks, Dan. Kind of took one of mine, and Phoenix 311, not very great. But so thank you for that, Dan. But mine was my thought would be, and this would be kind of maybe a rotating one. The information that was sent out about the high injury network, I think, was fascinating, also terrifying and sad, because it's folks are not statistics; it's actual people getting hurt and getting killed out there. I would love to see us take, especially if we can meet monthly, take a different stretch of the portion of this, that the very most unsafe portions that are represented in this high injury network, and do a look at that. Indian School, 43rd Avenue, Northern, maybe it's not in your district or your area, but everybody's going on the same streets. Would love to see that. You don't have to spend a ton of time on it, but what we're doing here is, trying to save lives and doing it through change. And so it's actually taking a microscope on a certain section of area, a couple of miles that are just lit up in orange in that high injury network as being really unsafe, and looking at that and proposing some solutions, and looking at solutions that are concrete that can be implemented. I'd like to see that on the agenda.
I can see that that would probably take quite a while to actually bring to fruition. I mean, selecting the segment may be the easiest part of it. Coming back with solutions may take not just a month.
No doubt. We're here to do hard things, Mr. Chair. And so saving lives is a hard job, and I appreciate everybody's work trying to do it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Jay. Correct?
Yep. Thank you. So there were a couple of things, and one is sort of a generalized thing for the committee itself. we've been talking about getting work done, or how often we meet. One of the things that we were able to do in some of the committees and working groups that I've been on is to create subcommittees to investigate certain things. And I don't know, I don't see anything in the ordinance that prevents that from happening. But maybe it's something that we can discuss at the next meeting as to whether that's appropriate and what it would look like, and how we'd be able to do that. Obviously, the membership would have to be less than a quorum of this group. But if we had somebody that had a question about something, we want to go out and investigate it, could have a subcommittee formed, and we can go and bring back data and information like that. So that's just something possibly for the future to discuss and to be able to create. The second thing is I would personally like to see maybe a report from the police department as to how they go about investigating crashes and what information they collect, and if maybe there's something in addition that maybe that's maybe this information that we're missing from, because there's a standard police report, and maybe there's something else that we might want to see with regards to that. And then obviously the city has to decide whether they want to incorporate that into a police report. But right now, I'm sure it's just sort of the standard fare for however they investigate a report. So maybe some sort of small presentation on, what information do they collect, and is there anything else that they see out there that maybe there is no place for them to put it on the report, and maybe we can adjust a little bit and get some better information.
Great. Anyone else? Seeing that, I'd take a motion to adjourn.
Hold on, I believe.
Oh,
Chair,
There's
we
someone who
have,
wants to.
yeah, a
I'm
couple
sorry.
things. Jamie too, after.
I can't
one
hear
request-
whoever it is that's talking. Is it you, Abigail?
Yes.
Go ahead.
One request I had for future agenda item is getting a bike master plan update sooner rather than later. It's very important. Thank you. And
I don't see
Jamie,
that hand on your, it blended in with your background too much for me.
I think Jamie had his hand up too.
I can see it now, yeah. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, I was wondering if it'd be possible for a future agenda item to be a progress update, so we could see where we're at with implementation, so we know how far the streets department has moved forward with some of the projects, just so we're aware of what's going on. Especially if we're going to meet monthly, I'd really like to just see what's going on and what we could do to help make that process quicker if possible.
Did you have your all of a sudden it clicked on you for some reason? Nope. Anyone else?
I actually did want to just ask, and what's the process for putting something on the agenda? I mean, do we just make a recommendation and the chair decides, or I'm not quite sure what the process is.
Well, I think if you make a recommendation, unless there's some reasonable reason it can't be on the agenda, it will be, maybe not on the next agenda, but it will show up on an agenda.
Great, thank you, appreciate that.
Would that be reasonable assumption, Kenny?
And that's correct, Mr. Chair. I think that's what we would do, is work with you on what we would potentially be able to bring to the next agenda, and then talk about items that are on the pending items on the agenda to figure out when those could be fit in, if they're going to be fit in. So yes.
We maybe we can do this. When I worked with the city, we always had a list of pending future agenda items that were submitted, so we knew the item was still there, it's on the list, and maybe we can, as we get more into this, we can start assigning dates to them or whatever. At least we'll have some frame of reference to when they're coming forward. Anybody else?
Can just so we're all aware of what was requested, can we get a recap of what staff jotted down?
Well, let's see. I'm not sure who was writing it down.
Did you write down, Tricia?
Sure.
Well, I am writing it down. What I will do is I can send correspondence to the committee, a recap of what is requested. I will create a future agenda item list, an ongoing list.
We'll probably have minutes from this meeting, and Tricia will include in those minutes the future agenda items that were requested. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So if there's not something there that we think we asked for, that would be the time to note a correction of the minutes. Alrighty.
One other question, is there a way to save the chat, or is that something that staff does because it's being recorded and sent to us, or?
Upper left-hand corner. You can save all, or and save chat.
I'm going to turn. I know Heather is on the call here, one of my staff members. Heather, is there anything we need to do special to make sure the chat information is saved?
Yes, Keeney, when Trisha ends the meeting, because she's the meeting host, there is an option that pops up that says save all related documents or something like that. I've done so many of these, I can't imagine that I can't think of the option it gives. But yes, that can be preserved. I think it preserves everything except whatever might be shared in private chat.
And I have one other request. Would it be possible to have a copy of the presentations sent to the committee members and anybody who requests them?
Absolutely.
Why not?
Thank you.
And then there was a request in the chat for contact information for the committee members.
I don't want personal contact information given out if that's.
I would just caution the contact between the committee members. We don't want to get into a situation where there is any kind of open meeting law violations. And so if you get to the point where there's a quorum, so I would respectfully request if there's communications that need to happen between the committee members related to this committee business, that you work that through Trisha directly, Trisha Quiros, and on her staff directly, and then she can make a determination whether we send it out to all the committee members or how we end up doing that. I just don't want anybody inadvertently getting in, violating the open meeting law information that we had already, the training we just had today. So.
Okay, very good. I do have a request then. Michael Scott had said that there were some things that he had written through some of his work, and I would love to see, whatever he wants to share with us. So however that's a sort of a formal request to Michael. If he's still here, I see he's listed, but I don't see his face. So I would love to see some of those reports that he said that he had and studies.
Yeah, I'm still here. If you can hear me, very simple. If you go to Google, type in Pop Center, it'll first thing it'll bring up will be My Center, and that will take you there. And then on that page, you'll just click on the traffic or traffic related problems, and you'll see all of it.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Before we leave, I'd like to say hello to Dan in the upper right-hand corner, who's been very patient, watching us all night. Are you there, Dan? All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move we adjourn.
All right, motion seconded. All in favor? Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. And thank you.
Everyone.
Be safe out on the roads.